When a group consciousness comes together to create the earth experience as a flow of creation, the free will element within the framework was given particular emphasis with the desire to allow the creative element to be given free rein. The hope was that this special emphasis would allow the blossoming of what you might term a utopian experience within the universal laws. It was not contemplated that the opposite would be created within the context of this focus. The joy of abundance was seen as a result of the proper placement of those laws at the center of the experience. Instead, the result was the abundance of materiality became the focus, and the concept of the end justifies the means became the framework of the distorted use of the universal laws. If the distorted version of the laws that indeed govern existence in the universe is projected thought is all that is known, then how do you create your way through this experience into a new paradigm which is in harmony with the totality of all that does exist in balance? This is the crux of the dilemma. If the earthly focus was created within a group focus, it would seem that a return to that beginning point would be to move toward. Picture as a beginning point a small group of dots coming together into a single larger dot, then this dot expanding outward into a bubble with a focus point in the middle. All of this is within an expanding moment. Next, see that bubble is starting to change shape and become an elongated shape which continues to distort into various configurations until it seems to be coming to a bursting point as more and more pressure is focused towards that point. Now, in your imagination, how would you return that configuration to a perfect circle? Think back to the way the circle was created in the first place and repeat the process. Isn't that what we've been recommending? You need not be knowing upper dimensional beings to do this, for as you become together with the intention of creating this return to balance, you need but invoke the creative process to receive guidance. Believe us when we say that it is through your concerted intention that this distortion will be brought into balance. It is the mass consciousness that controls the shape of the bubble. It exists within a flowing movement of the thoughts of all. As the negative pressure is purposely pushing the mass consciousness to conform as its distorted thought forms, which are contrary to what supports the existence of the bubble, the mass consciousness begins to react. Certain available connections to the source of each individual's component of mass consciousness begins to enliven, to resonate, as to be irritated by this pressure. The awareness of this reaction is causing more pressure to be applied to the masses that have been brought to the situation by the place that it is now. Think in terms of the bursting point on a bubble. If this bubble were to react, as would one of your balloons, the point would be to begin to thin and become vulnerable. What if instead this point, which consists of thought which thinks, would instead thicken and react in ways contrary to the apparent laws of the material world? Remember that thought thinking within itself couldn't accept thought that does not fit within the context of creation. Thought contrary to creation is directional only by focus in what you might think of as requiring great effort, cannot be released to complete the creation on its own. Thus, this process requires that every contingency must be considered and contained within the plan or added to the plan, which would then in turn affect the whole of the plan. Do you think this is possible when compared to the realm of thought that can think within itself and know every contingency in less than the blink of an eye? This is all thinking thought that has one incredible restriction called the free will of the participants. However, when the free will of the participants comes into residence through an intended purpose, then indeed all of creation breaks loose, so to speak. Is it as simple as that? What about the laws of creation that have been broken by all those within the mass consciousness? Isn't each of them required to repent and give up all their erroneous thinking? Come now, isn't that what experience is all about? You have forgotten something. Each of you is thought manifested into third-dimensional energy. If thought can think within itself, then do you think that it can do that within each individual? It can, but it has one restriction, of free will. However, the desire to move through this experience and return to this planet as a whole to its rightful place within the creation is a free will decision. When an internal boiling point is reached within the consciousness by the pressure being applied, don't you think that there shall be a call within each for help from the Creator? There's a point when there are those who are under the spell of religions that require an intermediary to hear God, will bypass that belief and undertake a call within themselves, which will awaken the understandings of their true connection. When that reaches a critical level, then that shall join in a new point of focus being formed at the center of the real circle, or the bubble, of existence, which creation has always existed. It's a matter of identifying with the real bubble and not the one that is on the play of the stage of the mass consciousness. If that's the case, why the big deal? Because the play is a reality for the mass consciousness, and in their free will it is real, and the continued existence of these soul extensions is in danger of extreme damage with reaction that cannot be explained in third-dimensional terms. It's a matter of the realization by enough of these extensions that another reality is within their ability to identify and claim. Perhaps your greeting would be, "Welcome to the winning side, let us identify and claim." The day begins anew as your planet turns on its axis and mankind sleeps on under the influence of the forces of darkness. Their plans seem to be moved in an inexplicable focus of disaster, and only the few faithful ones appear to be awake and recording the movements of doom upon this lovely world of green and blue. The magic of the beauty becomes blurred, and the very home upon which you depend is shutting down around you, and still, if noticed, it's ignored. The final days descend into the abyss while your TV, sports, and sleeping potions drug you figuratively and literally. What now can you few do to stem the tide of blackness as it deepens more and more quickly? Shall we recount again, as you already know, and groan and beat upon our breast, as did the prophets of old, and cry out for God to save us? Millions are already doing that to a Creator they think ignores their cries to answer their prayers. It is the perception of the victims that desire rescuing that they ask and cannot receive answers to such prayers. Indeed, only those prayers that ask for empowerment within the framework of creation can be answered. Do you think that the stars stay up in your heavens by casual request of a God being? Indeed not. They are there within the design of balance and mathematical laws that underpin all that is. Man continues in his mindless begging and blocks the very help he desires by being unwilling to participate, except in ways that are contrary to the very laws that support his unhappy existence. The story of the law surrounds him what remains nature, but in his mystery he blinds himself. The scientific learned ones analyze the components, but not the process of life within the manifested structures of life that surround them. The mental analysis of the mind deludes him into arrogant belief of his superiority over his surroundings rather than his brotherhood and kinship within it. How can those be helped that are becoming more and more blind to the very process within which they exist? The victim cannot be rescued, but must pull himself up by his own bootstraps and rescue himself by responsibility from his own rescue. Man is made in the essence of his source, is a tiny hologram of this source. A holograph is a tiny fragment of the whole that has the potentiality of projecting the whole from which it came. Though the concept of the holograph has been encompassed in part, it has not been analyzed with application to the essence of life that is within all self-aware beings. It is a refocusing of this fragment towards its source of existence that determines the degree of totality of the source that is brought forth in the known reality of each fragment's experience. If you consider the degree of focus that has brought forth the planet Earth from the fragment of its source, you can begin to get the picture. Look at the magnificence of the human body, that the vehicle of your experience here, a vehicle capable of housing a self-awareness to contemplate its source, if it but will. Because of the source's contemplated self, and in doing so fragments itself so that it can further contemplate itself through manifestation of experience. Within it, the free will to do this. Since free will is the vehicle for this contemplation, then it is manifest within each holograph fragment. This free will allows for all experience within the further enhancement of the self-contemplation process. This is the polarity that enables the recognition of that which serves the contemplation process and that which does not, so that the balance of those allows the completion of each exploration into the return of the fragment originally projected to its source. To follow this process as presented, there is a spiral of understanding as this is contemplated by the mind reading this information, or hearing it. Each fragment returns itself to the source that is projected. Thus you are led to understand the framework of the process as you are within, for each of you is like a holographic fragment of the source of all that is in the process of self-contemplation. Panic. You will become nothing as you follow the path of return? Indeed not. With each returning phase towards the source of your entry into experience, your own self-awareness grows and becomes greater and greater until you have the absolute potential to be a total equal within the greater totality of that source that's contemplating itself. Does that boggle your finite mind? Indeed, it should not. It could be the most comforting news that you've ever encountered. Could there ever be a brighter picture of future ever painted? What possible pleasures could ever compete with a future like that? Let me assure you that there are no fleeting pleasures of the body incarnate that compare with those that await you as fragmentary self-awareness begin to ascend the spiral of experience towards the ultimate goal. The problem is bridging the gulf of misunderstanding that has been set up as a trap by ones that have been caught up in the distorted misuse of the aspect of free will. These pitiful ones have become so caught up as to perceive them as powerful enough to reach not only to equality with the totality of the source of all, but even to reach a place of superiority. Even the distorted psychiatric paradigm of your time would consider this insanity if they could but encompass the scheme in its totality. Within this distorted paradigm, it's necessary to have a distorted replica of the process, a counterpart to that which exists. Humanity is but one building block for this, for they cannot create from a negative potentiality. Try as they have, it will not work. So they are left with the process of converting what already exists from what you term positive into opposite, a negative counterpart. Now, this is not a recent event in your linear counting process. How much have they accomplished? So as not to overwhelm you completely, let's say that it has reached a critical stage. To allow it to continue would jeopardize more of manifested experience by the source than is comfortable, enough to bring a focus of the awareness of this awesome totality of source to bring upon the problem. The potentiality of the focus for bringing balance back into the totality of the process, as explained above, is awesome to contemplate, even with the limits of the third-dimensional perception. We have attempted to explain before that there is help available that is powerful, and we have even understood it. However, the key to the release of this awesome force lies within that which has created the situation in the first place, free will. If you are not of exceptional value beyond being the vehicle of change, other means of ending this could be employed. The fragment of which each and every individual fragment of that focus is a portion must be accounted for in order for the balance of all to be maintained. You cannot be simply written off. That would create a flaw that would cause unacceptable repercussions. All fragments must return to the source from which they were focused or projected in order for that source to remain in the balance of wholeness. That is not to say that those that have perpetuated this distorted experience to the extreme will not have some interesting educational experiences, for certainly they shall. Your perception of time does not allow you to contemplate such a process, so do not attempt to do so. It's important that you gather into your awareness the wholeness of the situation so that you can begin to contemplate the understanding that even those of the darkest behavior patterns are valuable to the source that you call God. They are part of the totality of the word source implies. Simply telling you that they are all part of all that is has not brought with it any comprehension that encompasses the necessary understanding, and so another approach has to be attempted here. A back-to-basics lesson in your vernacular. Let's hope that this one has now been accomplished. If not, perhaps the rereading of this will bring it about. It is not that we wish a softening of your attitude towards what is being perpetrated, which would further their negative cause, but that you understand why simply destroying the whole experiment is not an option, or why just messing up their plans is not enough. The source, the big boss, wants it resolved, and who are we to argue? We have this key issue to resolve. So let's get on with it. Around the world there is a greater feeling of unrest. The intuitive aspects of each being awakened to the energy atmosphere of the planet is resonating with a focus of attention placed upon this single planet by the entire galaxy. Your fellow awake and aware cohabitants are certainly noticing what's going on here. This is different from the suffocating direct manipulative energies that are being diffused upon your conscious awareness. The galactic attention is coming through energies too subtle to be picked up by mechanistic methods in use by those of focused are content. The opposition must attain its end by employing methods of suppression of the natural expansive movement of thought within manifested form. What is flowing into your mass consciousness from the galaxy that surrounds you is of a natural, expansive quality. It is received within the awareness and then follows its expansive nature and arises exponentially outward into conscious awareness as dreams and sleep patterns that are not restful. The governing factor with regard to the receiving of this galactic message is the degree which the inner awareness of each individual being has been suppressed. How slow is the vibratory rate of being? Can it receive the stimulation of the higher and more rapid vibration of this galactic thought form? This is not a message of condolence that is being sent by sympathetic individuals. That is a trick of the lower dark energies, another of their suppression techniques. Rather, this is a focus of stimulation so that the receptors of light which hold each in focus may be returned to greater use. So you begin to see that there are two focuses of energy and motion, one of suppression and one of stimulation. We prefer not to use terminology of war here, but it can be noted that the battle for this planet is already underway. Not as depicted with the carnage everywhere being created by both sides, but in claiming and returning of the soul energies. The one side is planning for many, the other for all. Remember, if one tiny unit of energy is truly destroyed, then the totality of all is lost. The source of all that is expansive in nature. The energy can change form through what appears to be the rise and fall, the birth and death of form, but the energy that is at the very basis of this phenomena is always present. A polarity always exists within the format of this ever-present energy. However, it does not have to be present in the format of what you perceive as evil dark forces. That opposite polarity is another subject. What you must understand is that what appears to be the opposite polarity in the experience of planet Earth is an aberration, a distorted use of the polarity in energy. It is the exception, not the norm. The more clearly that you understand what is available to you within the context of this situation, the more easily you will be able to maintain the focus of your purpose within energies that are in motion around and through you. It's easier to succumb to the energies of suppression in the same moments of your time than to maintain your focus upon the stimulating energies that are acting within you. The battle is not upon the surface of the planet, as you've been told, but is within the individual awareness, and it is by definition also within the planetary awareness. It's either understood or misunderstood that within the planetary awareness the minds of humanity in combination are the conscious awareness of the planet itself. Therefore, the transformation of the planet earned by her through her repeated motherhood of evolving civilization hinges upon the transformation of her current resident civilization. You can begin to understand that the unity of this evolvement process brings forth the potential for misuse. This intercoagulation of energetic purpose is organized for the process of transcendence. The polar opposite conceived one-world suppression rather than planetary expansive transformation into higher dimensional vibratory experience. With the presence of so much heavy energy, thought exchange between planetary inhabitants, mind-to-mind exchange of conceptual understanding has reached a very low ebb. This has resulted in a proliferation of mechanized communication, each representing the abilities once in common use by you without a manifested device to make it possible. With the rapid advance of these technologies or devices to the focus on heavy, slow vibratory manifestation, what appears to be marvelous advancement is indeed quite the opposite. It represents a loss of ability to focus the formative, expansive use of the power of thought inherent with all creation. Sleight of mind is at work again, diverting your attention from the potentiality of creating outward from within to the use of the outer mind activity of analysis and manipulation of your manifested reality. The natural flow would be toward the exploration of the inner awareness and manifestation outward into your realities, the greater experiences to be found there. Where do you think the greater people-serving ideas come from? Instead, these are being twisted into people-suppressing uses right before your eyes while you fail to observe what is at work. All the while, you're watching the show being staged, diverting your attention. So now the fun begins in earnest. You're making your final attempts to reach the inner awareness of as many as possible through the last available use of their technologies, but you're also beginning to join forces with the inner energy stimulation. You too are receiving the stimulation. Indeed, you are like the repeater stations that your radio stations use. You are serving multiple purposes, and you are perfectly aware of doing this within the inner awareness portions of your totality of experience. Trust the process and hold the pole, so to speak. All is far from lost. Welcome to the winning side. focus and manifest. The glory of your nation fades before your eyes as one by one they are attacked from the inside and out. Each is dependent upon the monetary handouts that require handing over mineral rights and other resources as ransom. The money is siphoned off into secret accounts that returns to the usurpers as the leaders are deposed of or assassinated. The cycle is repeated over and over. People are abandoned by their governments and so must fend for themselves within situations of less and less available necessities and more regulations. Not a pretty picture to behold. So what now? Let's, again, consider possibilities that could bring changes to this nightmare situation. Could it be that the forces behind the situation could be creating causes to culminate this planet, suppression of the people of the planet, that might involve repercussions that are beyond their ability to control? Could there be small unknown glitches in those plans, which, if exploited, could cause outcomes not planned? Indeed, not only possible, but probable. Let's consider the Y2K as just one possibility. If indeed all the technological wonders of the basic power, water, computers, communications, money, travel, etc., all depended on computers to operate, then so also must be the military and conspiratory communication systems and all other wonderful mechanisms of planned use. All of these were constructed by contract. It is well known that contractors deviate from specifications whenever and wherever it is possible to cut costs. It's entirely possible that at least some of these off-the-shelf computer chips have been used rather than the special designs that were specified. If those substitutions contain the same data problem as those purposely in use for creating a chaotic breakdown of the world as you know it now, how would this affect their plans? Since there must be a synergistic exchange of information within their computer systems, there must well be repercussions with their own separately created system that will cause chaos within chaos. Portions of their plan may deploy, but in order to establish and then maintain complete control, which is their goal, all must proceed according to plan. What if enough of their plan moves into place for the people to realize the truth, but their own internal chaos allows for what we might call meltdown from within? What if the champions of mankind working within may have deliberately placed glitches within their system? Interesting to contemplate. Let's suppose that the above scenario is true. Now we have what might be called the double chaos and exposure, enough of the enslavement plan to bring humanity awake. This adds a third layer of chaos. Out of all this chaos, how does the balance tip towards the survival of humanity and planet? There's one more element that must be interjected here. What of those extraterrestrial beings that have been using the power structures they have coached into place? Would the above-mentioned chaos serve their purposes? Could they have sabotaged the plans of their own henchmen in order to eliminate them from the game? Do they have a place in the plan that overlays the ones that are in place? We might say that the plot thickens. However, we could think it even more. Since we are delving into possibilities, when one planet interferes with another to the detriment of the progress of the planet, we have the universal law of attraction at work. Simply stated, what you do unto another shall be done unto you. If you interfere with another planet, then you have given permission for other planetary forces to interact with you. Aha! Does the thick plot begin to come into clarity? Let us hope that your heart just skipped a beat, and real hope has been born within your imagination. We are still left with the dilemma of all that chaos. So let's give a little bit more clarity. Once a planet has been interfered with in an indirect way other than an adversary capacity, the inhabitants of that planet may request help in restoring balance and order. Herein lies the key. Help must be requested, and prayer is considered requesting. However, it must be what is called affirmative prayer. Affirmative prayer is entering into the creative mode that is your pattern, made in the likeness and similitude of your Creator. Humanity must actually come forth in a group focus, in a harmonious creative mode within the upward spiral of development of individual and planetary involvement. Now, knowing human nature, there will be those, when they have recovered from the shock, will immediately want to go back into the place that was within their comfort zone. They will desire to take advantage of the situation to create another situation of power over the people, for indeed the cry will be for new leaders. That will not be involvement. The next level is based on individual responsibility. Unless that is at the basis of the new paradigm, the opportunity of the transcendence of this planet and its inhabitants will be lost. What is important is that an already perceived outline to be the prayer of requesting help needs to be in place to supersede any chances of returning to the old. The help you need to bring into this being will then be assured. This help will not be in the military in any way whatsoever. It will be the love of the Creator manifested in it and shall be genuinely welcomed as it shall interact with the inner being that is being forgotten direct connection to the Creator. Love, connecting, and interacting with love shall bring changes beyond your imagining abilities. It is also appropriate to note that on a planetary level, the planet itself shall have a like experience. May this information offset your concerns about your futures. Welcome to the winning side. Focus and manifest, indeed. It is time to focus so that the emphasis can be centered on the pivotal change necessary for the transition of the project from this one phase to the next. Does not indicate that the first phase is already completed. That part, getting information about the activities of the Dark Ones, is now in motion. For our point of view in watching energy composites, enough movement is in the waking up phase has taken place to ensure its continuation. There are enough focused on getting the word out for its continued within that momentum. Information is being discussed between people now, by those reading and hearing this information. As you know, either by face-to-face discussion or through your computer internet chat rooms, the critical ripple effect is beginning. In order to keep the momentum, now that the wake-up call is ringing, it's necessary to prepare the next step, lest inertia caused by the lack of understanding of what to do next allows for the onslaught of mind-numbing techniques to continue to hold the upper hand. The next step is the choice of the individual to stand forth in determination, to detach from the emotion of overwhelm, and to observe from a space that is beyond the reach of the control techniques. Seems like a small step, but is critical, for it is the beginning of the separation from the herd, so to speak. It's a step that can be accomplished without the danger that physical resistance would be present. It is something that can be done in safety without being detected by the apparently fearsome entities that are striving for control. It's also critical in the process of each individual becoming aware that there is a connection to the awareness, a part of self that allows for this observation. It triggers a shift within the overstimulated ego function, begins the calming of the ego. This will begin to bring it back to its true intended purpose. This in itself is an empowering experience, for it begins the balance of expression intended in manifested experience. This is a very critical point. By establishing the observation experience, a change in focus begins to happen in a smooth and easy way. How is it best to begin to fulfill your assignment? By purposely practicing the process within yourself, you will begin to guide those who are in contact with you that are waking to the knowledge of what is happening to all around them. There is a fear element very active in their consideration, and this information and how it appears, it might affect their lives. It's not easy to contemplate all of the marvelous conveniences disappearing from their experience, and at the same time wondering how they're going to continue to make a living. It spells total poverty to them, and so it is easier to keep shoving it back to the back of their conscious awareness and not consider it. However, it continues to pop into their thoughts like a bobber on a fishing line. It's appropriate then to suggest to them that they stand back from the problems to begin to consider what possibilities there are to use the situation to their advantage. Opportunities will present themselves through barter, trade, and other methods yet to be created within the chaotic change period. Since it will be difficult to accumulate material wealth, this will free the creative aspect that is inherent in all fragments of the Creator. Creativeness is the keynote of experience at all levels. Otherwise, none of us would ever have been thought into existence. The key to all of this is asking for help from the focus of thought that brought forth the experience and hold us in it. If it were not for that focus, the basic energy blocks, atoms, molecules, and cells would simply fly apart. It seems difficult to correlate the probability of success for an entire planet with only a few beginning a shift by simply changing their personal perspective and then encouraging a similar change in those in their spheres of influence. But that's how it is to be done. Just as the long journey begins with the first step, so also is a change begun in individual experience. This is especially true when it follows the methodology that is the format for the operations of the laws that govern manifested creation. There must be first exist something so the energy may be attracted to it. In the beginning there was a thought, and the thought became flesh, manifest. Following the conceptual thought, there must be the desire for it to manifest. To think the thought only does not bring it forth. There must be an emotional desire to provide the fuel for the movement or change of energy from the thought into expression. Through coagulation of attracted energies, manifestation begins. Form includes more than things. It includes situations, circumstances, and stimulation of desire for additional thoughts that support the completion of the desired experience. It's within the creative impetus, once the processes began to move towards completion, when the purpose is in harmony with the universal laws. The focus desired must provide freedom within the spiral journey of return to the source for all that it will affect. When this is the underlying purpose, then the harmonic attraction is set into motion with all its subtle power released. It is well to review the basics when a shift in creative focus is to begin in purposeful action of great magnitude. Each and every change in the destiny of this planet is received with great anticipation to the highest and the finest vibratory level of awareness. Those changes that will lead to the establishment of balance and harmony receive input of supporting energy that strengthens and hastens the process. It would be well to acknowledge this with the gratitude as part of your meditations. The attitude of gratitude creates a return flow and allows for a greater exchange of the supporting attentive awareness. Beginning a change within a flow as firmly established as the planned hijacking of the planet is the most difficult aspect of the project of returning this planet to the safety of harmony and balance. It has required considering responses to the recognition of distorted energies into action, and further to ferret out its source and purpose. Then that understanding had to be put into written and spoken word, and ways found to disseminate the information. All of this is to be accomplished within a flow of negative intention that is not only in motion, but also can be compared to a fast-moving river. Yet you few are able to accomplish this seemingly impossible feat through the intent fueled by desire to save your fellow beings and your planet from being exploited. Now, if we can continue the process with that same level of intent and desire to move many things through the information about them to the next step, all shall continue towards the desired end result. Much of step one was accomplished without surface consciousness of where the knowledge and understanding of the situation engulfing humanity would lead. It was the need to inform and awaken so that something could be done. Thoughts of resistance to the original guidelines for continuing the government of the people fueled the process. Unfortunately, the government of the people by the people leads to tyranny in a quick succession through many small steps. Moving beyond into a new paradigm is the next step in the involvement of the conscious humanity. Understanding that the ideal of freedom through personal responsibility offers the true solution is a big jump in perceived reality, and would seem more to the beginning few in accepting this theory as being possible and beginning to contemplating. However, the impetus of the alternative of doing nothing during the collapse of the current experiment will supply pressure to consider new alternatives. The lack of sense of personal responsibility within the ideal of elected government entities will bring the realization of its importance as a key to success. The weakest link, muscle, must be strengthened by exercise, and must be given the opportunity to use in order to accomplish this strengthening. This must be the basis of the way out of the present situation to a new beginning. Birthing this concept is next on the agenda. It will be like putting this large rock into the flow of a fast river in order to divert it into another channel. Once the first rock's in place, then it's time to add the next one so that more water be diverted. However, now there are more available to move the rock. There is a saying in your culture that in order to accomplish any difficult task, it is the willing horse that must be whipped. It's not easy for the compassionate driver, but he knows that it must be done. Indeed, we bless your willing ones in these critical hours of this salvage operation. As you also say, hang in there. It is indeed worth the effort. It is time to focus so that the emphasis can be centered on the pivotal change necessary for the transition of the project from this one phase to the next. Does not indicate that the first phase is already completed. That part, getting information about the activities of the Dark Ones, is now in motion. For our point of view in watching energy composites, enough movement is in the waking up phase has taken place to ensure its continuation. There are enough focused on getting the word out for its continued within that momentum. Information is being discussed between people now by those reading and hearing this information. As you know, either by face-to-face discussion or through your computer internet chat rooms, the critical ripple effect is beginning. In order to keep the momentum, now that the wake-up call is ringing, it's necessary to prepare the next step, lest inertia caused by the lack of understanding of what to do next allows for the onslaught of mind-numbing techniques to continue to hold the upper hand. The next step is the choice of the individual to stand forth in determination to detach from the emotion of overwhelm and to observe from a space that is beyond the reach of the control techniques. Seems like a small step, but is critical, for it is the beginning of the separation from the herd, so to speak. It's a step that can be accomplished without the danger that physical resistance would be present. It's something that can be done in safety without being detected by the apparently fearsome entities that are striving for control. It's also critical in the process of each individual becoming aware that there is a connection to the awareness, a part of self that allows for this observation. It triggers a shift within the overstimulated ego function, begins the calming of the ego. This will begin to bring it back to its true intended purpose. This in itself is an empowering experience, for it begins the balance of expression intended in manifested experience. This is a very critical point. By establishing the observation experience, a change in focus begins to happen in a smooth and easy way. How is it best to begin to fulfill your assignment? By purposely practicing the process within yourself, you will begin to guide those who are in contact with you that are waking to the knowledge of what is happening to all around them. There is a fear element very active in their consideration, and this information and how it appears, it might affect their lives. It's not easy to contemplate all of the marvelous conveniences disappearing from their experience, and at the same time wondering how they're going to continue to make a living. It spells total poverty to them, and so it is easier to keep shoving it back to the back of their conscious awareness and not consider it. However, continues to pop into their thoughts like a bobber on a fishing line. It's appropriate then to suggest to them that they stand back from the problems to begin to consider what possibilities there are to use the situation to their advantage. Opportunities will present themselves through barter, trade, and other methods yet to be created within the chaotic change period. Since it will be difficult to accumulate material wealth, this will free the creative aspect that is inherent in all fragments of the Creator. Creativeness is the keynote of experience at all levels. Otherwise, none of us would ever have been thought into existence. The key to all of this is asking for help from the focus of thought that brought forth the experience and hold us in it. If it were not for that focus, the basic energy blocks, atoms, molecules, and cells would simply fly apart. It seems difficult to correlate the probability of success for an entire planet with only a few beginning a shift by simply changing their personal perspective and then encouraging a similar change in those in their spheres of influence. But that's how it is to be done. Just as the long journey begins with the first step, so also is a change begun in individual experience. This is especially true when it follows the methodology that is the format for the operations of the laws that govern manifested creation. There must be first exist something so the energy may be attracted to it. In the beginning there was a thought, and the thought became flesh, manifest. Following the conceptual thought, there must be the desire for it to manifest. To think the thought only does not bring it forth. There must be an emotional desire to provide the fuel for the movement or change of energy from the thought into expression. Through coagulation of attracted energies, manifestation begins. Form includes more than things. It includes situations, circumstances, and stimulation of desire for additional thoughts that support the completion of the desired experience. It's within the creative impetus, once the processes began to move towards completion, when the purpose is in harmony with the universal laws. The focus desired must provide freedom within the spiral journey of return to the source for all that it will affect. When this is the underlying purpose, then the harmonic attraction is set into motion with all its subtle power released. It is well to review the basics when a shift in creative focus is to begin in purposeful action of great magnitude. Each and every change in the destiny of this planet is received with great anticipation to the highest and the finest vibratory level of awareness. Those changes that will lead to the establishment of balance and harmony receive input of supporting energy that strengthens and hastens the process. It would be well to acknowledge this with the gratitude as part of your meditations. The attitude of gratitude creates a return flow and allows for a greater exchange of the supporting attentive awareness. Beginning a change within a flow as firmly established as the planned hijacking of the planet is the most difficult aspect of the project of returning this planet to the safety of harmony and balance. It has required considering responses to the recognition of distorted energies into action, and further to ferret out its source and purpose. Then that understanding had to be put into written and spoken word, and ways found to disseminate the information. All of this is to be accomplished within a flow of negative intention that is not only in motion, but also can be compared to a fast-moving river. Yet you few are able to accomplish this seemingly impossible feat through the intent fueled by desire to save your fellow beings and your planet from being exploited. Now, if we can continue the process with that same level of intent and desire to move many things through the information about them to the next step, all shall continue towards the desired end result. Much of step one was accomplished without surface consciousness of where the knowledge and understanding of the situation engulfing humanity would lead. It was the need to inform and awaken so that something could be done. Thoughts of resistance to the original guidelines for continuing the government of the people fueled the process. Unfortunately, the government of the people by the people leads to tyranny in a quick succession through many small steps. Moving beyond into a new paradigm is the next step in the involvement of the conscious humanity. Understanding that the ideal of freedom through personal responsibility offers the true solution is a big jump in perceived reality, and would seem more to the beginning few in accepting this theory as being possible and beginning to contemplating. However, the impetus of the alternative of doing nothing during the collapse of the current experiment will supply pressure to consider new alternatives. The lack of sense of personal responsibility within the ideal of elected government entities will bring the realization of its importance as a key to success. The weakest link, muscle, must be strengthened by exercise, and must be given the opportunity to use in order to accomplish this strengthening. This must be the basis of the way out of the present situation to a new beginning. Birthing this concept is next on the agenda. It will be like putting this large rock into the flow of a fast river in order to divert it into another channel. Once the first rock's in place, then it's time to add the next one so that more water be diverted. However, now there are more available to move the rock. There is a saying in your culture that in order to accomplish any difficult task, it is the willing horse that must be whipped. It's not easy for the compassionate driver, but he knows that it must be done. Indeed, we bless your willing ones in these critical hours of this salvage operation. As you also say, hang in there. It is indeed worth the effort. The failure of the planned conflagration is to be expected, for there must be a foe in order for that to happen. If indeed there is no armaments to oppose them, what will the dark forces do? There have been such conflicts, but the end result was not something to be repeated. There were self-appointed ones who knew of no other way to oppose distorted energy forces, and this resulted in two wrongs, which did not equate to a right. It is imperative that it be understood that the armed resistance is futile. Those of us charged with assisting in resolving this situation will not support it. Though it has been mentioned before, it seems appropriate to make this point entirely clear. There is an interesting method of resistance employed by workers within industry where they are working in a factory situation in which the owners, managers are oppressive. It's called malicious compliance. It is extremely effective over a period of time. In this instance, the employees do only that which they are told to do. They execute their assigned functions, nothing else. For example, if a machine is breaking down, they do nothing about it. If an item of production is out of place as it moves down the line and will become entangled in any way, they do nothing. It was not their job description. They operate exactly the way they're told. Nothing is done to create a situation. They just allow the process to follow its natural course. Total compliance, no resistance, and the situation deteriorates into chaos by its own momentum. An interesting course to contemplate. Is this turning the other cheek? Not really. It's understanding the process of manifested creation outside of nature. That which comes into being through focus of thought is maintained through continuous focus. It continues as long as it serves its purpose and the focus of positive attention holds it in manifestation. When support for this is withdrawn, it returns to chaos. Management, as in the above example, rarely knows the exact functions and their focus upon manipulating the workers, the customers, and the balance sheet. There are too few holding the focus with positive intent for the manifestation to hold its form. How then is nature different? Nature is creation expressing in harmony with itself. Man did not create nature. Scientists are busy altering nature in your time. Ever bothered to find out how long the hybrid distortions can be held in form? They cannot replicate themselves in perfection. The genes must be recombined, and often that does not happen, according to past successes. It does not happen when the intent is in harmony with nature, as in producing flowers of greater beauty in different colors. But the intent is to glorify, not to exploit the process of nature. Most often, those who love the plant work within their plant processes to accomplish these successful changes. The point of this discussion is to bring your attention the importance of the intent of the group that desires to cooperate with creation as they focus on the framework of the new paradigm. It is suggested that they consider nature as ideal. This might give them a starting point. How indeed does nature fit into the whole of creation? How could humanity live in harmony with nature, rather than attempt to have dominion or power over it? That does not mean that nature should not assist mankind in existing on this planet, but it should be a reciprocal relationship. The future would involve cooperating with nature within the laws of the universe. But what are those laws? Where does humanity find those laws that have been hidden from them? In the small amount of time remaining, is there time to study nature and attempt to put together an accurate understanding that could be disseminated quickly enough? You must remember that what you need is available if you ask. Already the law of attraction has been mentioned, but how many laws are there? Less than you may think. The number of applicable laws increases at each dimensional level, for the learning of these laws and the application allows for the evolvement to the next level where there are more to learn and to apply within experience. Let's begin a review of these laws. It's also a review because you have forgotten them in your sojourn in the third dimensional experience. The underlying law of creation is the law of attraction. Simply stated, like attracts like. It does this through the basic tool of creation, thought. I believe your Bible says, as man thinketh, so he is. If you focus on the morass of evil once you are aware of it, you strengthen it. It is important to be aware of it so that you may withdraw your support of it by using the second law of creation, the law of deliberate intent. Purposely withdrawing your fear and fascination for the evil situation, once you are aware of it, with the deliberative intent of doing so, is using this law. You cannot do this by attempting to stop thinking about it. It is only possible to do this by substituting another thought on a completely different subject. In case of the evil plan, it requires the total inclusion of those involved. It does not matter what the thoughts are as long as they support the plan. Complicity involves believing the intent of those involved is for the good of all. Perhaps now you can see the power of sympathy for the afflicted ones around your globe. This supports the victim consciousness that is required, for it is complicity in disguise. Do you now consider them victims of war or natural disaster or poverty? You must take a deep breath, accept your part in bringing support to their feelings of victimhood. They too have a responsibility in the creation of these situations. Your sympathy would not solve their misery. Your deliberate choice to create a new paradigm of experience will do that. Withdrawing your focus of attention and bringing it towards creating a new experience will bring the change about far more quickly than repeatedly sending aid while considering them poor innocent victims. Does this sound hard-hearted? From our point of view, it's hard-hearted to be part of the creation of these horrendous situations in the first place. You must deliberately choose to implement your desire to create a whole new experience for them as well as yourselves. When you choose to place your intent beyond the play perceived by the five senses and place it instead in the creation of a new experience, you are withdrawing your consent and supportive experience in which you will no longer wish to participate. You are using the second law of the universe. These are the two laws that apply to this situation. There are yet two more, and these shall be brought to bear within this information as it is appropriate. It is important that we progress within the laws as they are applicable. This is important that you come to realize that the laws of the universe are immutable. They cannot be changed or distorted. They work without question as to who is applying them. When you consider the plan of the evil that surrounds you, you can see them at work. Like attracts like, and intent of purpose brings situations into being. However, we've attempted to bring you to the understanding that there are nuances within the laws that allows for creation to continue. There needs to be an understanding and awareness of the leavening ingredients of the free will following by its proper use. Through this, we have infinite variety within creation and expansive movement results. It is our hope that you will contemplate the implications of this information, and it will enlighten your understanding as well as strengthen your resolve to serve our winning team. When we last had occasion to deal directly with those behind this plot, it was within conference-type situation. At that time, they were informed that they were full awareness of what their plan was set to accomplish. They were told that it was a futile attempt, that it was their choice to continue on their chosen path. Inasmuch as free will is the loose cannon of the universal plan for evolvement, there was nothing we could do. Now has reached the point at which their plan is indeed a threat. None could ever attain their desired goal of a negative universe galaxy, yet however can create unmanageable chaos. Do not take this information lightly. It is indeed a serious situation. This is not of the fault of the inhabitants of Earth. It is just that this was a planet with a consciousness and physical manifested body type to fit the most ideal criteria for their plan. This is not the first time they've tried to overwhelm your planet to use it and the humans for this purpose. It was a long time ago in your sequential accounting. They were far advanced then in their technological gadgetry, but did not understand humanity, which allowed them to be repulsed. Unfortunately, humanity chose to use force to do so, and in that way buried within their psyche the belief that force was the way to solve any encroachment upon their perceived freedom. In a way, it married you to them through their perception. This time, they believe that the earlier error in understanding their foe will not be repeated, for they've studied you well. Every weakness is known, and is being exploited for their purpose. However, their focus was upon inducing your cooperation and resisting them until it was too late for you to do so. They carefully laid plans to overwhelm you both sensually and physically. In particular, they have emphasized safety over adventuresome risk, except within military paradigms. So you have insurance for all risky portions of your regimented life. You have addictive paycheck system to depend upon along with Social Security. Notice it is always capitalized right along with your reference to God. Even omnipresent Satan clause is capitalized. Your heroes are all well-paid sports or movie stars. How adventurous are these? Your movie star heroes are drugged and adulterous in open display along with your presidential movie star. Remember, if you can be held at the lowest level of your dimension, you cannot take advantage of the dimensional leap at the shift of cycles, but can instead be taken to an even lower level of vibration. At that point, it is the intention to separate the soul energy from the body. They have no intention of putting it back into another body. It's the energy that they plan to use as the power in the transformation of the chaos they intend to cause from positive to negative. They believe that the lower the vibration, the nearer it is to the still point, thus making it more malleable. All of these theories have been reached by attempting to study creation through the process of following its step backward from manifestation to creative impetus. Fortunately, there are many miscalculations in their plan, but not enough to avoid create chaos. Indeed, their plan progresses much further. Here again, we're faced with a great stumbling block of free will, the key ingredient in both bringing the situation into existence and causing it to self-destruct. Magical key is held by the consciousness of the beings on this planet. The consideration of the situation from the above point of view allows for it to be a very bleak future indeed. Enter the view from the other side, that of creation. This view is adventuresome, opportunistic, and positive. It moves not upon a long and exacting plan, but within the fluid and expansive mode. It moves within a creative stance that allows for enhancement of individual and collective experience rather than suppression and destruction. Remember the picture of the pond? The other side must control the ripples from the outside in. We may cause them great problems of containment by using just one small pebble. One idea, continuing thought focused on creation. Here we have two opposite modes of movement within the totality of creation. Now looking at the bigger picture, on what side would you place your bet? It's not that our side does not have some problems to resolve. It's just that we have innate natural expansive consciousness that harmonizes with the intended life experience. Even though the conscious awareness appears to be mesmerized into sleep, how does one bring a hypnotized person back to consciousness? Is it not a snap of the fingers? But must that trigger be previously programmed? Not necessarily. Their planned trigger is its sudden mass realization. of overwhelming control, an emotion they plan to feed upon with great enthusiasm. So we have been busy triggering this realization in a slow and steady manner so as not to alert them to damage that's being done by their planned trigger. Remember the 100th monkey theory? It's a slow and increasing dawning of understanding within the mass consciousness until a critical number reaches an awareness of a new concept and all knows. Guess what? We are disarming their trigger. All of you are aware of the awakening happenings now. You are hoping for sudden realization while we were implementing the opposite. We are planning surprises of our own. It is indeed rewarding or fun, as you put it, to be on the winning side and know it. Now is the time to begin to prepare the step in the process of a new focus for the awakening awareness of your planet inhabitants, a new paradigm of experience. How fast must it move into the fray? Don't sweat it for a moment. Just do your part and all will come into play right on time. Once the first crack in their plan is complete, things will pick up in momentum. Just remember that we are hardly impotent. It's just that we must play the game according to the rules and ensure success. Not so for our opponent. Keep in mind that the Creator must retain all of its fragments, even those that are perceived opponents. He cannot stop caring for any part of the whole of his being. Note that we use the masculine within this information when referring to the Creator. It's just that creating is an attribute of the masculine focus, while the womb or ability to contain the creation of the masculine function is considered the feminine attribute. Through this, we have the depiction of the masculine Creator and the Mother Earth. Indeed, it is the balance and wholeness of experience. We would prefer that the woman of Earth would come into this understanding and find their balance within it soon. May these glimmers of understandings be blessing indeed, as you continue to fulfill your commitments within this wondrous event. Keep on, keeping on. It is within the scope of the information to bring through the basic framework of the underlying movement of how we may assist you to spearhead the ripples of change that will spread outward through the mass consciousness. Remember that when the pebble is first cast, the first outward ripples would seem quite inconsequential, but in the moments that follow they move outward in ever-widening circles. This process works when the waters of the pond are still. The mass consciousness is indeed mesmerized into stillness through the mythology employed by the planners of this situation. That does not include ones involved in skirmishes of war, but when the totality of the billions of beings upon the planet is considered, you must remember that there are many who are not reached by the media communications and are unaware of any of this drama. Therefore, the surface of the mass consciousness awareness remains quite still. This is the reason that it is imperative that we accomplish our goals to interject our changes within the individual awareness of key individuals now. It is a slow and detectable change of thought patterns within each individual that comes into contact with this knowledge. That is the underlying foundation of our building process. The talk radio programs, as well as the supporting data available on the Internet, are making an impact with additional printed and visual material for those who have yet to understand and process the wake-up information more completely. This format is reaching countless individuals who have this within their conscious and subconscious levels of mind. Their degree of denial on the conscious level does not matter at this moment in the sequence of events. The information is there to be remembered when some item of news or event in their experience will trigger the remembering of it. The Internet reaches around the planet, and the mushrooming of interest in available information is a measure of the thirst for this knowledge, and is a small indication of what's going on. Please note that had one of the talk show hosts indeed stopped his involvement, there was backup present and already in operation. Volunteers are given opportunity, but backups are standing by, not only waiting, but already in position. Ours is not a slapdash, poorly planned operation. Just as the opposition has focused energy to lay their plans and to implement them, this was not unknown to us. In the observation of these, there were plans in readiness so that any possibility to end their endeavor at earlier stages was possible. Indeed, a chess game of great magnitude has been in progress for a very long time in your counting. Now we're down to the final moves. The understanding of this basic framework of the plan involves seeing your part in the initiation of this phase as being within the first pebble. To bring change to a mass consciousness involving billions of individual points of awareness by a small group of focused group awareness is indeed a tiny pebble. It is a focused aspect that makes a difference. especially when that focus is in harmony with the underlying purpose of the Creator. As that focus encompasses a larger and larger group, the pebble becomes larger and larger. Just because it has reached the surface of the pond of mass consciousness of those inhabitants of the planet, it has not yet reached the level of the surface of the pond of awareness of the planet herself. The level of awareness of Earth consciousness is a whole new ballgame, which has never been explored by the humanity in this sojourn you refer to as a current wave of planetary civilization. It was known and understood at what might be called priestly levels long ago, but the information was not disseminated, just as there are what you call beings of awareness who have transcended the third-dimensional experience and who are devoted to the task of assisting you in this process. So also are their focus of awareness that serve in that purpose at the planetary level. Those are fully aware of this situation and have not yet brought their influence to bear. What you perceive as influences involving Earth herself are as yet just normal reactions to distorted patterns brought forth by the extreme misuse of your home base. If the action within mass consciousness does not bring upon the desired changes, then a pebble of different origin will ripple through that conscious pond, and indeed there shall be a movement on that level which shall not be kind to the inhabitants. Unfortunately, that level of awareness is oblivious to individual humans, and so all shall experience and survive, or not, those events by their own intuition as to placement and movements within the events as they occur. It is still possible to bring upon the reversal of a planned misuse of the inhabitants and the planet without that level of involvement. As you can see by following the messages, there are multiple levels of involvement in this situation, and we have been barely scratching the surface. It's not planned to overwhelm you with information, but only to bring forth that which will serve your understanding that you are not abandoned, but are supported fully so that the opportunity to transcend through the cycles may be fully available. It's not necessary that all of humanity be given this information in order for them to participate at this moment in your timing. Most would not even consider it. It is for those that are open to it and find comfort in knowing that their efforts are acknowledged and supported. Most have moved on with their assignments without knowing why or how to accomplish them, but have taken advantage of the opportunity and kept going because there was a knowingness that it was what they had to do. That is courage indeed, which does not go unrecognized in the final accounting of this endeavor. Blessed to all that read and consider this information, for it is given in the focus of love within that which is the source of the opportunity through experience. Now that we are beginning to reach a level of understanding of the basic format that is the foundation for your cooperative focus within the larger view, it is possible to expand into more levels of information. These are not at the physical activity level, but in the more important area of using creative thought. Inasmuch as you are a focused fragment of the Creator's awareness, it is now time for you to begin to fulfill your purpose of expanding the use of the holographic concept that has been the vehicle of your trip into the third-dimensional experience. This is not a process intended to overwhelm or cause resistance within your awareness. These concepts are known to you at a deeper level, and will seem quite familiar provided you relax and follow the wording. These will begin to stir the inner remembrance process. It is within your understanding that a fragment of a whole can, through the holographic process, depict the whole. It is through the projection of light through the fragment that the illusion of the whole from which it came is reproduced so that the nature of the whole can be known. If this is the case, then you are a picture of the whole from which you were projected. If this is true, then how can there be a diversity in what is seen all around you? Shouldn't this be a world of exact replicas? If the source of the replicated whole were limited to one focus of experience, then that would be true. However, if the whole of that source is multidimensional and within its makeup holds potentiality of multiple focus of purpose, then the projected fragment draws upon the unlimited fields of possibilities. Thought provides the mobility that allows creation to flow into manifestation. Thought has the potential of thinking within and upon itself. This is another way of describing free will. Thus, these added levels of activity enable endless variety to be present. Now, if that is true, why isn't every fragment totally different? You were created in the image and similitude of that which projected you into existence. Here, the law of attraction is similar yet different is seen at work. If that was absent, then there should be no exchange of thought, and creation would be just an unending field of unrelated diversity. Enter what you call intelligence, which is nothing more than thought thinking within itself and observing itself observe itself, a spiraling activity. Focused thought thinks itself outward into manifestation. This is the slowing of the vibratory rate of the extended thought to the lowest level at which it contains its purposeful intent. At that point, the manifested thought can no longer perceive its source. It is in a state of thinking awareness that now can perceive itself and its surrounding environment. In your vernacular, it can no longer clearly remember the nature of its source, so it has forgotten. Since it is projected thought, it must maintain its connection in order to remain in manifestation. Through this connection lies the potentiality of the fragment focusing on its own thought, processes purposely back through this connective energy flow, and then beginning to remember what it is, which again is thought thinking within and upon itself. Since the holographic projection is an extension process of the outward movement of thought, the natural inclination is to continue the outward movement through the use, in this scenario, of its sensatory tools to think and observe. Indeed, we could go on for volumes of books to cover the beginning story of this planet and its history of its inhabitants, but that would take us far afield from the purpose of this message. The point is to help you realize that thought thinking within and upon itself is commonly experienced by you because it is exactly what you are. Through the choice, you create diverse experiences, through thinking and choosing. Each experiences commonly shared situations differently. This is the natural flow of creation within itself. This sounds idealistic when the current situation surrounding you is considered. When multiple human beings, the extension of thought from higher dimensions, focus, experience interactions, combined thought patterns evolve. These thought patterns in movement are something like your breathing process. They expand to a certain point, and then they relax and contract by returning first to a restive state. Involved within this process, you have experienced positive and negative polarities, or so you have named them. It is a slow, spiraling process, just as your breathing process was intended to assist you in the slow, spiraling process. If these are the parameters of experience, then you can begin to perceive that the contraction-relaxation phase of the process in this moment of planetary experience is not a normal one. It is very distorted indeed. Your intended freedom of thought choice process have been violated. It is layers of thought distortion experiencing contraction that has bypassed the restive point that normally allows for the return to the expansive mode. Hopefully, you can now overlay this understanding upon the planetary experience. If so, you see that in order for the distorted plan to accomplish their moments of beginning, following use of planned chaos, which is to be their field of opportunity to cause a change of polarity, they must allow the restive point to be reached. Their idea is to attain this by overwhelming the greater part of the conscious awareness of this planet through a majority of its inhabitants. This is teamed with the ending, or shifting of a major creative cycle in this galaxy. There exists within their timing and their mythology their greatest weakness. For the contraction of the awareness beyond the universal norm, when placed in momentary rest point, sets up the opportunity for a reactive expansion of major proportions. Carefully placed triggers within the same contracted awareness can ensure this expansion. Welcome to the winning side. Focus and manifest. Indeed. It is now appropriate through the shift of greater understanding within the key group of visionaries to begin the focus of the conception of the new paradigm of experience. As in the pattern, many will receive this cosmic stimulation, and the perfect few will respond when the opportunity to participate is presented. Keep in mind that this continuing process will move through phases of birthing within the awareness individually and collectively in a subtle, calm, transcending movement. Do not expect a massive jumping on the bandwagon type of reaction. It will move outward in a whisper of awareness. Again, think in terms of the patterns of nature. When you observe nature, you will see spirals in the slow process of growth as a spiral of shell formation within the functioning of breathing. Though invisible in form, it is the process that begins at birth and carries each mammalian form through its sequential life. Consider the birthing process through the format of breathing, expansion, and contraction, causing movement toward the goal within a transcending spiral and carrying it to completion. You will see a traveling outward of the conceptual information, an in-breath of consideration, again a traveling outward, and an in-breath of shared discussion, moving toward the desired focus of a new experience. The intent fueled by the desire for the new experience will bring forth the process which is being built upon the foundation of focus provided by multiple levels of awareness, with supporting intent for this situation to move into a new paradigm. This is the appropriate moment to consider a self-defeating concept that needs to be corrected to ensure success. Through long-planned misinformation by the religions on your planet, you think of the focused assistance as coming to you from the outside. You look outward at the surrounding lights in your sky at night and presume it is coming from out there. Indeed, it is possible to exchange energies at the level of manifestation. However, the flow of creation is from the inside out. It is an expansive process, and again, we must remind you of the in and outflow of the breathing process. What your scientists observe as a burnout and destruction through black holes, etc., is instead evidence of the breathing process incorporating the spiral changes of shifts into higher vibratory dimensions. As this happens, appropriate energy fields move through the process. If all was energy, then what is observed would long ago been devoured by one single black hole. Here again you have begun to understand the magnitude of the plans of the negative focus in attempting to create through the process of pushing this galaxy through a process opposite the creative flow into an opposing reality. What is perceived by the scientists as a compaction of energy into a tiny ball of massive molecular weight is, of course, total nonsense. The energy is expanding within the conversion process by increasing its vibrational levels as it moves into a new paradigm of expression. Is this galaxy or a small portion of it going through the black hole process? There is no awareness of it. What if it was true? If it was to happen, it would hardly be a hellacious experience. Let us return to the point. To say that our plan is in motion does not mean that the conscious contacts with seemingly appropriate beings of shared purpose and dedication are near completion. It is this process of conception that is the focus of these lessons. That which is to be accomplished at more subtle levels depends upon this process proceeding within defined parameters. The outflow of this information to those of commitment is encouraged. It is most meaningful in the whole of it, but each can stand alone as is appropriate. Key words to trip the intercept triggers have been for the most part avoided, and the references, beings, and processes of interest are made as subtly as possible. It is time that the usage of those be virtually eliminated, as our focus of intent is on information that educates and informs you of the true nature of yourselves and the energetic forms and functions of the creation of which you are an integral part. Let us make a point clear. This focus of information is not God speaking directly to you. That which you call by that name is confused and misunderstood scramble of information. What has happened is that what could be personified into the creator of this galaxy is not the focus of the whole of all there is. To make this understandable, perhaps, let us return again to the breathing process as an example. The underlining all that is pure potentiality, and even finer levels beyond that, which are imperceptible because to perceive would be to limit it. At its conceptual level, breathing is an expansion as you breathe out. Rest, in-breathe, rest and repeat. Potentiality is most available for absorption, big generalization, in the moments of rest. Throughout the entirety of the expression of potentiality into experience are varying degrees of awareness that have begun the return trips by first realizing they are holographic tiny fragments of the focus of their creator. This creative focus is in turn a tiny fragment of finer, more encompassing focus of the potentiality that underlines a greater creation that has at some point been birthed from that which lies beyond in an unknowable state. Will we return to that state of unknowingness? Is that our goal at the farthermost reaches of eternity? Doubt it, for it appears that in order to move through the return trip, just exactly the opposite is necessary in order to progress. You must remember that one of your greatest distortions in understanding creation at this level is your concept of needing to measure experience as linear in what you call time. It is also a great barrier for those of us who are too interested in the experience to bother to measure it. We can conceive of no reason to do so, for we know divine order has no sequential parameters. As we return, our discussion of your concept of God, you can now see why we have substituted the word creation and creator instead of using God, in the hope that we could begin to change your perception. The word God itself conjures up feelings that cause inner turmoil in many, since at a deeper level they know that the religious teachings through a long sequence of experience have brought them only confusion. These have given them a distorted representation of the source of their origin. It is important that those who intend to bring forth a new paradigm have at least a basic clarity as to the nature of their identity and the source of their existence. What lies beyond this galaxy is at this moment outside the necessity to understand. To know that it is all that is necessary. Our focus lies within the creation of our Creator. He, androgynous but in the masculine creative mode, can be called God, but frankly a new name is recommended. You may address communications to Him, but it is only received when it harmonizes with the creative outflow of His expression. In His name, as an expression in your Bible, was meant to tell you to place your focus of prayer within that purposeful intention. You are to make a request that intends creation within the harmony of His attitude of all that is necessary to bring what you desire is available for your use. You are a fragment of Him, and through you, He, the I Am awareness of your connection, is experiencing expansion of the total awareness that you or He. As you do this, it is a shared experience. As a fragment of Him, you create by attraction of all your experiences. By using the law of intention in harmonious cooperation within His expansive mode is how you create purposeful or new paradigms of experience. It is hoped this information is a blessing through the expansion of your understanding of who and what you are. Yours is a glorious heritage. Celebrate. When your perception of time is adjusted to include the possibility of giving up as unimportant, the necessity of measuring experience in blocks, rather than allowing it to simply flow through your experience, you will have surpassed a great impediment to your progress. Earlier in the existence of your planet, there was not a tilt in the axis, and so the seasons, as you know, did not exist. This confined plant and animal existence to the more moderate temperate zones. But the growth was more prolific and extended further into the colder areas than you might think because of the adaptation. The effect of the tilt causing you to have the seasons as one more block of experience to measure as a time. A continuum of days and nights within an unchanging overall weather pattern brings a more relaxed focus on the necessity to measure time within survival experience. Before the distortion of the energy of competition, cooperation was one key to existence. When the lifestyles of what you refer to as the indigenous tribes in the equatorial latitudes of your planet are considered, there is much less emphasis on measuring blocks of time and more cooperation within the survival groups. There is less competition between groups that is depicted in your movies, excluding areas like Africa because of land outside influences. These are considerations to be included within your new paradigm. The greater the unbalance of the planetary inhabitants, the greater imbalance of the planet as a whole. Within the changing of the galactic cycles lies the opportunity for rebalancing both the inhabitants and the planet. This does not mean that the planet would necessarily move 23 degrees back to perfect balance, but indeed some change could be made. It is interesting to note that there is a move among you what you refer to as liberal political views towards the elimination of competition within the educational experiences of your children, and it is met with stiff resistance. Of course, there are ulterior motives, for this would further calm the children into less and less creative modes of experience. Athletic competitions bring forth desires to excel, and the concept transfers over into desire to excel in other areas. This has been a larger stumbling block for their plans than was anticipated. As an interesting side note, the greatest improvements in lifestyle, art, and genuine music happen during lengthy periods of peace when there is no competition within warring conflicts. The history of China has long periods of freedom from being overrun by other cultural groups and little intermarriage with outside groups. Unfortunately, overpopulation was a counterbalance, and these improvements were not widely available to all the citizens. Nonetheless, the focus was turned inward towards contemplation and desire for greater experience of uplifting and more joyful existence. Much was accomplished during these periods. The new paradigm must include within it the desire to lift the human experience above the pivotal thought and behavior patterns that force distortions to be repeated generation after generation. The desire to do this is apparent in the myriad of self-help books, tapes, and well-trodden paths to the psychologist and the psychiatrist offices. The approach is from the outside inward by considering the action and attempting to find the buried experience that has caused the reactive habits. Here again, envisioning a new paradigm and focusing on experiencing this instead of fixing the old would empower the desired new realm of existence. However, even if accomplished, the ability to maintain a different level of experiencing within the surrounding environment would be difficult indeed. As more than one crab in a basket would not allow any to escape from the basket, so it is with the human experience. The new paradigm must be a cooperative group focus of desire within and clearly stated purpose that can be held in focus for a period long enough to bring it into manifestation. You can now understand what the focus group must accomplish is to create clearly stated purpose that is appealing to all of humanity. Attached is the apology of an essay written in 1899, long before instant communication. It chronicles what happens when it was published in a small, inconsequential magazine. It was called A Message to Garcia. If this one inspirational message could travel the globe, then think what effect one encompassing message of purpose could do within our goal. Through the focus of getting this information out about the existence of the evil planners and of their deeds as far as you have been able to discover them is indeed the necessary first step. It's not rally to reactive response. It's just as well, for as we have said before, the victim martyrdom which might have engendered are not part of the true paradigm of experience within the creative flow. What is needed is a pivot point that can be accomplished before closing of cycles. It need not be accomplished in a simultaneous moment. It is at best an event within each individual's conscious awareness. That process does not make it less of a pivot point. It would lay the groundwork for the greater pivotal changes in conscious awareness that will happen within sequential experience. Again, we remind you that free will allows those who choose to remain in the pattern of present existence. Do not be concerned with those. The ingredient of free will in the soup of experience teaches us another universal laws, that is of allowance. Personal responsibility is just that, personal. It means that one is concerned with the choosing of his or her own experience and is not responsible for the experience of others. All are allowed to participate within a group focus of cooperative experience or not. However, choosing not to participate does have its consequences. Those who choose deliberately to withhold their participation in ending the present paradigm will be allowed to continue it elsewhere in somewhat different format. They are allowed to choose their mode of experience in this situation. Allowance is the most difficult of the laws to be learned at the third dimensional level because of the deeply ingrained need to control. Control is transcended to the practice of the law of allowance. At this point in this discussion, we encounter the situation of child abuse. Children are within the influences of their parents' belief systems. What the parents believe and focus upon draws experiences to the family group. Information of past family history is encoded within the combination of genes, which accounts for events happening to some members of the family and not to others. It emphasizes the fact that parenting involves more than dealing with planned or unplanned children. It is a personal responsibility of each parent and both parents together to raise the children within an understanding of the wide scope of influences such as undertaking involves. It is important at this point to discuss the capitalization of various words in this text. It is intended that this material be as free of the religious connotations as possible. Current and past experiences with priestly manipulation and control caused immediate shutdown or distortion of understanding information that contains these references because of the misinformation about the control of what you call God. We can assure you that the Creator could care less if you honor Him by capitalizing all references to Him. He is much more interested in whether or not you harmonize with the outflow of His creative focus. There is a problem because the very words you choose to indicate awareness of this flow of energy engender reactive feelings. This cannot be helped. So it is best to at least do away with all the capitals. It is one trigger that is best left inactive. It is our intent that this continuing discussion brings a deeper understanding with regard to the purpose that looms in your immediate future. It is hoped that it strengthens and supports your commitment to continue on your progress along the paths of completion of this segment of experience. However, don't plan on a long R&R leaves at its ending. As your need to experience in calculated time passes into relative unimportance, the momentum of your experiences of the new paradigm will flow smoothly into a release of the materialistic mode that holds you tightly within the powers of the deviant perpetrators. It is the pursuit of the creation of your personal fiefdoms and the competition to create one of the greater opulence and grander physical pleasures that you have been trapped. These are the empty promises to fill the void of imbalance that you feel within. Subliminal messages are planned within all the advertisements to feed your materialistic addictions. The tangled and layered morass of information and lies is reminiscent of the fable of the lion and the mouse. The lion of humanity lies staked to the earth, held fast by the net of distraction of the conscious mind. In the story, it took a tiny mouse to chew through the ropes to release the lion. In our version of the story, it's the radio talk show, the available internet information, and the publication of books and tapes that constitute the mouse. The information shared is based on personal experience and researches of archives of information available to any that care to take advantage of it. The integrity of the net is threatening to give way. Once released, the lion is then unaware of the power of this tiny mouse, so anything could happen. Unfortunately, there are more nets in place unless we take charge of the storyline and change the scenario. The point of these messages is to encourage and to inform, not educate in the format as it is practiced. There are no subliminal subversive intentions hidden within them. Each of you has programmed within the deep levels of your awareness the memory of the purpose you came into this lifetime to accomplish. We are simply keeping our agreement to remind you and to give you guidance and direction to your actions. When the focus is on reacting to what is perceived as imminent danger, then momentum is lost. It is our agreed function to share the view that we are privileged to have from a dimensional encompassing a greater vision of this situation. We view energy patterns in movement in holographic display, and we can model the various possibilities available. This is an advantage. It is the purpose of this information to share what is allowed within the universal laws governing free will with as much clarity as possible. We find allegorical stories are remembered and applied to overall understanding most effectively. We are limited to those available through the experiences of the translator of this information. It is the dictation, translation, transcription process, with the translation portion being the most critical component. It is important that this person continue to input information to enhance the available database. Guidance is provided to appropriate materials. It is within the allowable guidelines to bring to your attention deviations within these patterns that can be corrected because it is your free will decision whether or not to do so. The problem of getting information to you is massive indeed. Face-to-face discussions are not possible for many reasons, but mostly because the victim martyrdom is not in our experience pattern, and that would be the end result. Therefore, we have at this process a more effective way, though there is no two-way exchange possible at this time, and it's not necessary. It's also possible for us to bring much information into the awareness of those committed to the project. Through the acceptance of the commission and commitment to participate and see it through, the energy matrix of each changes, and this is observed. This opens a line of communication and also results in a chain of activity within the interdimensional sleep states. These changes are reflected in the outer dimensional activities during the day. Many changes in these lives will be noted, from the mundane to major shifts in attitudes and choice of activities. As mental and physical activities change, the intent and commitment becomes more focused, and a spiral effect begins to occur within the levels of consciousness. You are supported in this process. It is with trepidation that we bring to your attention that the open communication lines are now under greater control, and it is their intention to identify those yet unknown individuals who disseminate information that counters their plans. As yet, it is in the identification process and has not moved beyond its retribution. This is because there are purposes for allowing you the privilege to do what you are doing that are not known to all levels of oppression. The word identification process is being further expanded. We suggest strongly that you edit your verbal and written conversations. Book wording can be read electronically, but titles especially are being processed. If suspicious, then the forward epilogue portions are to be reviewed. Expect bookstore chains to be contacted and told to remove titles from the shelves, and raids to take place at wholesale or distributor levels as the next step. Hopefully they will be discriminating and take only certain individual items. However, that has not been the pattern. This will limit your freedom to print and distribute freely, so creativity must be used in the wording of titles, forwards, and endorsement information. It suggests the possibility of setting up alternative locations and different names with books, likely to pass through the first two tests. This might be considered as possible joint efforts if the hurdle of profit sharing can be worked through. If reprints are being considered or new books or tapes, these considerations may be important. Creativity and promotional copy will be challenging. Intuitive inspiration is available upon request. Smile. You're on the winning side. It is with resolve that you must focus the energy of intended to bring in forth this phase of the project. There is indeed a nuance of difference in these. One can intend to do something but never actually do it. Resolve is the spark that holds the intent at the forefront of the field of activity within your awareness. This phase referred to what might be called the second layer of activity towards the initiation of the project. The phase of getting the word out does not cease because a new phase has begun. One simply adds the beginning of the next phase in a layering sense. Phase 1 was something like the foundation of a pyramid. Now we're beginning the second layer of the construction before the first layer is complete. Visualize how graphics complete a picture on the computer. It begins and does not always complete the picture in total horizontal motion, one line at a time, and the picture at some point complete. Next, consider this in a holographic focus for the planet. In your mind's eye, you can see where the information has gone and paint in the areas where the information has been sent. If you see the planet as dark and information painted as in lighted areas, you can begin to see the picture. You can see the sprinkles of light spreading outward. Even people who have heard and consciously rejected the information reflect a degree of light, and it remains waiting to be fully reflected. It is because you cannot know how many of these there are that you have difficulty in grasping the magnitude of the accomplishment that this phase has reached and continues to expand. 100th monkey point is very close indeed. Portions of Phase 2 are already in motion, and momentum will expand it much more quickly than Phase 1. Because of this awareness brought forth by Phase 1, there are many that are waiting and wondering what it is that they can do, now that they are aware. We shall provide that answer, and it will seem to me then an easy thing to do, for they are being asked to do something that can be done privately and without drawing any notice. And it is the most powerful thing that needs to be done. It's a focused, pivotal change of attitude from victim to empowerment. The great resistance to Phase 1 information was because each thought it would involve armed revolution to accomplish the change. We know that a change is not our goal. A new paradigm of experience begins with totally different techniques and methods, and there is no countermeasure in a place once it has begun. It can be countered only with reactive measures that would be deviations within the negative plan. This would bring forth chaos within that focus. The negative plan is to counter the flow of creative energy within it exists. It requires continuity and narrowly defines focus that links together. This is absolutely essential. It is with joy that we share these segments of information so that you may begin to understand more than just the nature of the negative plans, but also to understand the weak links available within their plans as opportunities. We can continue to guide you as how to gnaw away at these links as long as we are asked. Please remember to do this. To receive and follow through is as of critical importance, but do remember to ask. Your appreciation is warmly received and your follow-through is applauded with zeal at many levels. However, the key is always to use your free will to choose. There is a children's song used to teach the letters of your alphabet. The alphabet is the foundation of the written words in your language. What we desire you to learn to use is what the foundation of manifested self-awareness. Just as you must learn to apply the alphabet to written language and combinations of sound to speak the language, you must use the principles that form the foundation for directing the flow of thought into the coagulated energy that creates what is experienced as life. It is the utilization of the potentiality underlying all that is known at every level. This is accomplished through a process mentioned before and is reflected at the very basis of your ability to remain in your earthly form, breathing. In a simple format, it is drawn to the expansion of the lungs, rest, contraction of the lungs, rest, and repeat. The lung is the vehicle of containment and motion. It, in turn, is contained within the totality of a greater consciousness awareness vehicle, the body. This is a pattern matrix that is repeated in endless variety. The stumbling block is to learn to appreciate this variety each time it is encountered and remember that it is but a unique manifestation of the basic pattern matrix. This difficulty is especially true if there is distortion in the particular expressions encountered through experience. The more confrontational the experience, the more distortion is occurring, not in just one, but in both individuals. Distortion, unfortunately, ripples outward and encompasses groups of interacting individuals. When the interactive distortion becomes large enough, then in order to correct the distortion, a large number of those involved must return to the relearning and application of the basic fundamentals of manifested experience. Simply stated, they must relearn and apply the universal laws. Guess where your planetary inhabitants are. Fortunately, you have at your disposal communications with a high potentiality of reaching vast numbers, at least at the moment. Mounting pressures of multiple layers of oppression are creating tension within those that can be reached, and yet there are many ways of reaching them. 100 years ago, this would not have been possible, even though there were fewer to reach. These communication possibilities have been named mass media for good reason. There is no reason why these cannot be utilized for a reason contrary to which is originally intended. Perhaps there was even help in bringing them into such widespread use. Could be. Guidance in many areas is available upon request. Where are your requisitions? The length of these daily messages depends on how much information can be received and assimilated, and in conciseness of the message format. Clarity and conciseness are the goals, with enough repetition to assure that the information is planted in fertile ground. If not, then another approach is used. For the greater part of human consciousness, the substitution of a new focus within their awareness is all that's necessary. For others of you, much more is involved. You have committed to physical action and the conception and dissemination of this new focus. After all, someone has to plant the seeds of thought that comprise the foundation of this new paradigm before they can begin to grow, mature, and reseed themselves. If you are reading this information or are hearing it, then you are chosen. Now the ball's in your court, and you will choose to be chosen or not. It's your free will decision. Our blessings are given as you process the information and provide it to others for their consideration. In your vernacular, hang in there. The roller coaster ride is just beginning. You have not even gotten to the exciting points. Just know you are strapped in and the ride will end. However, I doubt you will wish it would last longer. Not this time. The focus of these messages has been toward the dissemination of information that concerns the expansion of your understanding with regard to plans and appropriate attitudes and actions within the group areas. There has been little information with regard to your personal experiences and application in that area. This was not to indicate that this area is of little importance. New Age information, better called New Thought, which could be categorized even more accurately as remembered thought, emphasizes the need to be balanced and chance be in the now. In actuality, that's correct. As previously pointed out, all of the cycles within the cosmos galaxy move toward and away from the center point of stillness or perfect balance. In order for the galaxy to be in balance, the cycles are moving within a balance of those moving away and those returning to each balance point. You could picture it as a gyroscope spinning and moving around a central gyroscope that remains in perfect balance and put forth an energy pattern that holds all the smaller gyroscopes within its sphere of influence. Each gyroscope outside the central focus contains within it myriad of smaller gyroscopes. In order for this entire system to continue in existence, there must be equality of energetic motion. If one gyroscope gets far enough out of balance to approach a point beyond its ability to return, then counterbalancing must take place within the whole system with the focus of holding it within the range of safety. This is, of course, an oversimplified picture, but to give you some understanding, it allows you to picture Earth at its tilt of 22 degrees approaching a point of losing its ability to return to balance. Consider that within the gyroscopic picture of Earth, there are 6 billion tiny gyroscopes, each spinning on their own axis. The balance of these influences the balance of the larger one. If most of these are out of balance, then of course the larger ones cannot remain in balance. Grasping this picture leads you to understand that the fourth universal law is that of balance. One pattern of thought that holds the powerful influence in the balance or imbalance of personal expression is that of past, present, and future. Since all are necessary for various reasons of survival and progress, they are embedded within the ego observer mode. Remember to burn and do not touch the stove again. You desire to build a larger house for your family so you can vision the steps your future must contain in order to track that experience, and so you migrate between the two. However, there is the moment of now that you experience that is neither past or future. That is your balance point. That is your place of rest. You return there during each sleep cycle. There was a time as the planet revolved in a cycle of light and darkness when all were active or resting in unison, which brought greater balance to the whole. With the advent of artificial lighting, this balancing pattern is no longer present. Mankind now has constant activity, first with the industrial age, now in the technological age. Even within the homes, the hours of rest within a family are varied. A balancing technique is practiced in what you call the Far East, and it's called meditation. The New Age group quickly adopted it. Techniques are often distorted, and the conscious awareness is overwhelmed with media clutter and unable to find the still point of balance within the combination of conscious and subconscious. Entering that still point allows for connections with the soul and balance to be reached for at least a short time. Balance is reached through the understanding and practice of the three basic laws of the universe: law of attraction, law of deliberate creation or intent, and allowance. If you review the previous messages, you will find within the information suggestions for resolving this problematic situation of the population of Earth. In order to live the new paradigm of experience, those participating will be required to focus within their present time. Only the framework will be known, and it must be fleshed out through living it into existence. Experience by experience. This will require living within present moment reality. Within this focus group experience, balance will be attained. The past cannot be applied, and the future will be unknown. That would leave only the present. Let us consider the galactic cycle completion. It is only a momentary instant that is available to accomplish a grand accession or a ghastly dimensional crash. That depends. Again, return to your fixation of experience measure blocks of the sequential events. Experience within what you call the present moment is a misnomer, an inapplicable designation. When you are focused into what you are thinking or doing with no awareness of any other activity, you lose track of time. Each of you have experienced that. Only by looking at your time-tracking device called a clock do you have any idea of what time might be, other than the presence or absence of sunlight. If each of you were totally intrigued with what you were doing, that was your only required focus, and there were no seasons to concern you, would you care what day it was? If that intriguing subject opened the door to another and another, would you care what day or time it was? I doubt it. If you were in balance, would sleep be necessary? What about food? What about recreation pursuits? Aren't these necessities really just a search for balance? This is not suggesting that you become breatharians. These are simple ideas to intrigue your imaginations. Your experiences are so far out of intended balance that it is difficult for you to imagine what balance during wakeful experience is like in the third-dimensional format. It is far more pleasant than you know. No wonder you desire to leave this dimension thinking that respite is only to be found elsewhere. Without balance of the third-dimensional experience, you cannot exist in higher dimensions in your body format and current self-awareness. First, you must become into balance. Because you are all interconnected, individuals have insurmountable problems maintaining balance, even if it is achieved. It's necessary to bring a large number into balance to accomplish what is necessary in the bigger picture. The Bible warns you not to place pearls of wisdom before those who have no viable connection to the source of life. It is time to strike that idea from the books. It is time to do another 180-degree turn and do it in the practical, applicable terminology. The pattern has always been to hide it within religious and esoteric terminology so that only a few were privy to the information, lest it be lost through individual interpretations that might destroy it. Without written words, for few were literate, Allegorical stories were the only method disseminating even basic understandings. These contain references to activities and other commonly known and understood references that were within that local cultural environment. Even these basic understandings became distorted when the stories were retold in cultural situations that had no reference point to the original understandings. We find ourselves of necessity reintroducing the basics. A good place to begin, a new beginning, don't you agree? Attraction, intention, and allowance, leading to balance through application within experience. A doctorate in these positively leads to ascension to a higher dimensions. Welcome to the ascending team. We are entering the period of time that leads to the beginning of the shift of energies that will begin the days of tribulation. Unfortunately, some of the predictions that have been made reflecting the plans of the dark side will manifest. Though they seem to indicate that the situation is irreversible, it certainly is not. This will be a time where it will be critical for those of you who are privy to the behind-the-scenes maneuvers of which you are part, hold faithfully to the understanding and belief that they do indeed exist and are positively laying the foundation for the new paradigm. This new pattern of experience can be pictures of the shimmering castle coming forth amidst a scene of frantic, confused activity. It is at first very dimly seen. Though this is hardly the pattern which is the new paradigm will resemble, it is indeed draws on the Camelot myth as a recognizable fantasy, containing within it desirable dreamlike ideals. It's a process of it rising through the mist of focused imagination, in the midst of what appears to be reality. This is the understanding that we desire to trigger. If you are not a Camelot buff, then choose some other picture. The phoenix perhaps, but choose for it to be transformed and to rise before the ashes stage. We would emphasize the recognition that the desirable already is manifesting before the undesirable has disintegrated. The focus of even a few with belief and knowingness that it does indeed exist and is coming forth is of a critical importance. By choosing different pictures, but the same focus, then the process is held in place until the purpose is defined and becomes the ideal. Defining the purpose will not be an easy process. Many versions will be proposed before the ideal wording can encompass it. This is meant to encourage ones to begin, for the first step must be taken so that progress can be made toward the goal of bringing it forth. It is the brevity and universal appeal of it within the diversity of 6 billion beings that is the key. Though it seems impossible, we assure you that it is possible. We remind you to ask for guidance and help at these sessions. Egos must be in their own observative states, for the credit of writing will go to no one individual. It's the desire that it comes forth in perfection that must be the motivation. It shall stand alone in its purpose of encompassing the focus present on earth into a focus of expression, into greater experience. Again, we remind you of the breathing process. It will be taken in by the conscious awareness, contemplated and expressed outward through desire for its manifestation into each personal reality, and held dearly while it happens. We wish it were other than a lifetime for drowning beings, but that is the experience we have created. It is through an approach encompassing universality of scope that the encompassing appeal shall be addressed. The focus on this aspect will begin to draw the feeling of oneness to the beings on the planet. A realization will begin to dawn that all are facing the same dilemma. As the itchy feeling that something ominous is present continues to intensify, this feeling keys understanding that the causes of it are beyond local, regional, or national scope. The oppression is being felt with greater intensity. What about the indigenous people? As we have mentioned before, they already know. Their shamans have given the message, and they are aware that a new paradigm is being born. They are steps ahead of you and are already at work on its expression. Their people are aware and already in harmony with the process. Do not be concerned for them. Survival is their way of life. You may find yourself wishing you had incarnated into a more indigenous way of life in the days ahead. I did say may. Inasmuch as all has incarnated from the same source, you are indeed connected and do communicate at subtle levels. The mass consciousness, the awareness, is malleable through coercion, but always certain levels of it remain connected to the source. It's through these connections that we can achieve subtle changes that will lay the groundwork for future shifts at the conscious level. The oppressors must work with the levels of the mind, while it might be said that we have available the levels of the heart. The heart feels. A feeling can transform the beliefs held by the mind. When the feeling vibrates within the being at a certain level, it overrides the belief, and the being simply tosses it out and follows the feelings to a new conclusion. The feeling of oppression is soon to override the insistence of the mind that all is well, and the Big Brother government will work things out for the benefit of all. The magician is about to lose its veil of darkness and be seen in the full light of recognition, and it may not be at the time of its choosing. Inasmuch as you live within time as your controlling focus, we must deal with it. The sequence of linking interfacing action events now enters a phase of critical importance. It's important that each of you feel the inspiration, the divine urge, to push ahead with this project. The dominoes are in place, and it will take but a nudge for them to begin their sequential trip. The placement of the final few must be preempted in order that the dark plan is unable to be carried to its planned conclusion. If a critical few can be removed, then the planned sequence will go awry and glorious confusion will result. The perfect time for the new paradigm to rise amid that confusion. Its conception must, however, have been completed and the birthing process well underway at the subtle levels. It is difficult for the information contained in these messages to stress the importance of various facets without becoming repetitive. We are also aware that some are reading or listening that have not had access to prior information. Thus, we are attempting to make them at least somewhat inclusive. The window of time available to complete the second phase that is focused towards the completion of the worded purpose is continually shrinking. Therefore, we feel it necessary to continue to prod and poke, lest it close without its completion. Chaos would then indeed reign, and the birthing of the new paradigm could be unmanageably difficult. The period of chaos could stretch on for a painfully long time in your counting. It's not this information that is important. It's conception and completion of the writing of the purpose. We do not want this information on file in your Library of Congress. We prefer it to be exchanged on a personal need-to-known level. It's purposely written so as to exclude words that trip the communication scanner so that may be yet spread easily to the chosen ones. We wish to be very clear about this. Our translators spend much time in the thesaurus mode looking for synonyms, so word patterns are varied within each document. What appears to be but a few paragraphs involves much dedicated attention to this facet of caution. The purpose of this information weighs heavily on the conscious awareness. However, commitment carries process forward day by day. We are finding that commitment matched in like manner by the readers of it and are grateful indeed. It is your resolve to bring this new archetype of experience into being that holds the progress made in place so the building of the pattern can continue. Visualize the pattern of a snowflake, only now beginning to crystallize from a drop of water. Just the very beginning of one corner, what might be the unique picture is happening. You are not only watching the creation of something uniquely beautiful, you are providing the focus that will cause it to happen. How could you avoid continuing to be an important part of this beautiful demonstration? When the time arrives for what could be termed the crash of all your systems of communications, utilities, and supplies, there will be turmoil and confusion of massive proportions. It behooves you, who are well aware of this possibility, to survey your personal situations and to make contingency plans. It's amazing to us that this information is known, but each assumes that it will happen around them, but not to them. You are aware of the existence of various mechanisms that would provide at least minimum replacements for your utility needs. Even coordinated systems are available. The project will not make the shift in consciousness before this breakdown of current lifestyle. There will be a period of chaos. How long that will last depends on the completion of phases 2 and 3, the conception of the new paradigm, and then the spread of it through conscious awareness of your brethren. As you can deduce for yourself, communications are relatively easy before the breakdown, and difficult at best after it. It is critical that you realize and begin preparing for this advanced menace for which as much focus and dispatch as possible. We are long past that I can hardly wait for it, but I don't have time to prepare for it just yet. Syndrome. It is necessary for you to look carefully at your priorities and remember that you have made commitments that involve the survival and transcendence of as many of your willing brethren as possible. This does mean that they have to be occupying their bodies for this to be successful. This is indeed a heavy responsibility. We again remind you that all possible help is available if you ask and move your feet. It would appear that it is necessary to also remind you that the discussions of Phase 2 must be conducted in places that are not likely to contain listening wires. It is suggested that you view the movie called Enemy of the State and listen carefully when the character Brill describes the capability of the electronics. He goes through the list at top speed, and so you must be listening carefully. It was also given on TV when filming the process of the movie was reviewed. Brill in the movie reminds the hero that the capability is listening were available many years previously. However, the capability to apply them in a massive manner was not possible until recently. But the added sophistication since exceed what is demonstrated in the movie. All of you are being observed, and when you gather, you can be sure your discussions are of interest. We would prefer that this project continue unnoticed for as long as possible. If this sounds melodramatic, so be it. As for discernment, and then view the movie and you will understand. As our arrogant planners flaunt their mythology before your eyes, assuming the sleeping minds have little discernment between programming and entertainment, there is no reason we cannot use this information to our advantage. When you ask for discernment within our purposes, the ability to interpret and envision ways of applying the laws given you will provide avenues avoiding their entrapment techniques. As all-encompassing as they appear, they are inventions of opposite focus and thus contain the elements of self-destruction. Just as divine purpose contains within it the impulse for self-expansion, the opposite contains the tendencies of self-destruction. When the negative polarity is expanded, then its innate tendencies are magnified, just as the opposite is true within the positive polarity. It is within the path between the two that the spiral of evolution exists. It is important to note here that the meaning of the word evolution has been purposely distorted by implanting the idea that evolution and adaptation are synonymous. Animal life and even human life at one level adapts. Evolution refers to the spiral of spiritual experience through, think holographically, its return, trip to the source. Here you can see a correlation of spiral to spirit and holographic to holy. When the appropriate moments arrive, you will have the discernment to bring forward into your conscious awareness a prickly feeling that causes you to move to a more appropriate place, and it will be available. Planning ahead does not work. It's necessary to be flexible and move in the moment. It's spontaneity that provides atmosphere in which creation moves without restriction. Since creation is what you are about, then it is important to move within the framework of purpose as spontaneously as possible. Though it would seem that opposites are at counterpoints, indeed this is combining the polarities in a complementary fashion, allowing for the spiraling effect that is desired for movement in a balanced fashion. Polarities are not limited to extreme opposites as in black and white, on or off, good and bad. Pink and gray are opposites, but of different intensity. These intensities are available in abundance to apply, and though this principle diversity within a focus is accomplished. How does this apply to the project at hand? It's through the diverse contributions toward the goal of completing Phase 2 that the appropriate composite will come forth. Each session will be a think tank of spiraling ideas toward the goal, fueled by combining the individual minds into an empowered group focus. It is the addition of the group focus that gives the increased power of the creative presence. Because the Creator is not a personal presence at the third dimensional level, he cannot be literally present. But the combination of focus provided by the shared common goal brings forth a greater power, particularly when numerical combinations are observed. The common language of creation is mathematical formulation. The practice of numerology touches upon how these formulations apply to individual lives. Spontaneity is allowing the conscious awareness to relax so that harmony with these foundations of existence will bring forth the desired results within the framework of the defined purpose. The purpose of these think tank sessions provides the framework to bring forth a greater purpose that in turn will be the framework for the new paradigm. It will be the framework to provide the individuals to continue the process within their own experience. This may seem simple enough. However, the strategy, it is the understanding and the follow-through of the steps within the universal laws. Allowance is the most difficult to incorporate. Rising above the need to control is the leavening of the loaf, so to speak. Volumes could be written regarding this, but it would not change anything. It is in the doing that it is accomplished. It is the doing of this one facet opens the door to the transcendence of this dimension. The ability to apply this principle is built upon the use of previous to and through the application of all three. The forest is reached, and bingo, you are there at the point of choice, to go or not to go. Graduation requires a release of attachments, then, not now. Just as you have been misled regarding your ego, so have you been misled regarding the attachments. There is a difference between attachments and addictions. That is for you to discern, and now is the time to release the addictions. You must ask yourself what it is that you think must remain in your experience, and would it be pleasant to have, but not absolutely necessary. You will be surprised if you take a few moments to make even a brief list of your technological wonders and contemplate what life would be like without them. You will then be prepared for your not-too-distant future. This is not to say that the plan to provide for the basic necessities of addiction rather than wisdom. Here again we ask for discernment. We remind you that it is our concern for all that motivates us to share as much guidance as possible, for this project is of critical importance. The Creator is non-preferential in the desire to retain every fragment. We, however, value our ground team greatly. Friendship is a wonderful part of the shared experience of self-aware manifestation fragments. You don't remember us, but we remember you. The days are now upon us for gathering the focus that will bring upon the transformation of the mass consciousness. It will be an interesting process of interlinking various consciously begun projects at different places on the planet. There are more than one ground crew with purposeful assignments. While it is natural to feel that one person or one group is attempting is too little, too late, this is not the case. All are now in place or nearly enough so that the concerted beginning can be initiated. It is necessary that the resolve, intent, and purpose be held securely within the scope of each of you, as the days ahead may become discouraging. You must hold to your commitment with a calm and trust that does not waver. This experience is a manifested reality that must be dealt with inside that reality. The game must be continued on until completion. It can no longer be changed or delayed. Humanity is sinking into greater fear and confusing, furthering the plans of the manipulators at a rapid pace. The spiritual levels of each are becoming more and more inaccessible, and the reaction of the spirit expressing through the body to this process will continue to reflect through the reaction of the planet also. It's not a pretty picture from our perspective. It is not our intent to focus your attention into this picture, but it is also necessary that you are aware of what you are working within. It is unfortunate that it has had to proceed this far into the levels of suffering before the consciousness becomes vulnerable and desperate enough to pause and reflect that enough's enough. Perhaps now enough can be reached, with the desire to bring the situation to the end, to be willing to accomplish it through a total change of ingrained habitual reactions. The locking mechanism has been what has been called the opium of religion. The religious doctrine of ours is the only way and all else is wrong has literally created cells within the dungeon of ignorance, with every modern religious sect present and accounted for. This is not to say that some truth is not present within them, for there is not enough either within any one of them, or even a composite of the truth known within all of them, now to guide mankind in anything but unending circles of frustration. The innate desire is always within each, to progress towards the goal of transcending this entrapment and within the third dimension, and now religion offers no way to continue the journey. The aspiration of each soul extension as it incarnates on earth is to assist in bringing this situation back into balance. Each desires to become part of the pivotal pebble in the pond, but instead is caught in the entrapment of the heavy, oppressive pattern of energies and become part of the chorus calling out for assistance. The assistance cannot come from without. It must come from within, through self-empowerment, not for the purpose of placing the self over and above others, but in the genuine desire to inspire others to follow suit. In this way, these individuals come into harmony with the creative flow and with the focused, conscious desire of those who are dedicated to this purpose that had accomplished this transcendence before. Unfortunately, the situation has reached such a sad state that dedicated ones of higher dimensions have now volunteered to incarnate and act on behalf of the inhabitants and set into motion a wave of self-empowerment on the planet. These volunteers are numerous and await the triggers planted within their awareness to remember their roles. The time has come for this to begin. Now is the time for those self-appointed ones leading mankind from being to becoming what was intended. Human being is a misnomer. Each is a human becoming. Knowing this and referring to themselves in this way, each would be constantly focused upon the true purpose of incarnation. Then the internal cry of those on the planet, and the planet herself in this moment of time, would become, I am a human, a God-man, becoming. Help me do this. Then a response is possible. It changes the focus from I am a victim, help me, which implies help me to continue being a victim, to a focus of desire for self-empowerment. After centuries of calling for someone or some ritual or miracle to accomplish the impossible, man has been unable to figure out that it must come from within his own awareness and the empowering of himself so that it can be accomplished. Instead of the self-empowerment urge was distorted into self-aggrandizement, and the result is seen all around you. The shift of your own consciousness towards your desire for this end has brought forth your ability to attract these messages. As the wake-up triggers are tripped, the ripples of the pebbles shall become waves. Then the action shall begin, and many levels of links shall form, and the wheels shall begin to turn. A beleaguered mass consciousness shall experience the shift, as will the planet. This will not be the shift, but will be the beginning of the necessary upliftment that must precede that process. Keep in mind the vibratory level of the mass consciousness. No inhabitants of planet Earth could survive a shift of the fourth dimension at this time. No amount of meditating and listening to channeled entities has accomplished this feat. It must be a shift in self-perception and the focus of this purpose of this incarnation in great numbers to accomplish this, as the flow now is downward in a vibratory rate into disease and death. To halt this movement and change its direction will require a shift of major proportions. The normal vibratory rate of the human body has been determined to be between 62 and 68 megahertz. The brain functions optimally between 72 and 90 megahertz. When the body vibration lowers to 58 megahertz, it can catch a cold. At 57 megahertz, the flu. At 55 megahertz, candida. 52 megahertz, Epstein-Barr. 42 megahertz, cancer. And at 25 megahertz, death begins. By considering the health problems of your friends and family, you can begin to get a true picture. Our interesting negative planners simply lower the megahertz of someone they would like to eliminate through their recently devised methods. Within a short period of time, the body either develops a fatal disease, or if lowered enough, death occurs, and whatever disease already present is the excuse. Allopathic medicine, a misnomer. Chemical prescriptions lower the megahertz of the body. Radiation from TV and computer screens lower the megahertz. And consuming processed and canned foods, which have 0 megahertz to support the body, continue the process. Starvation is the least subtle of the ways to lower the megahertz and brings on the lowering of the mass consciousness before each dies. In that way, these make contribution to the descending cycle. The human body has amazing adaptive abilities, but the onslaught of ways to bring down the vibratory level to tie you to the planet has reached critical point. The good news is that the shift in focus of the purpose by the critical mass within the encompassing planetary consciousness can go beyond removing a few critical dominoes as placed by the interesting planners. It could reverse the way they fall, thereby releasing the lowering process and allowing the megahertz of the bodies to increase. Now that's an interesting supposition to consider. The picture as it is at the moment is beyond discouraging. It is appalling. However, in playing out various scenarios and the holographic possibility, it is not at all hopeless. The key lies in the cards held by the ground crew. How these are played will determine which of the scenarios are available to ensure success. Keep playing. The last game has just begun, and the Creator never gambles. He only plays with sure bets. After all, He made up the game, and He never forgets the rules. You can rely on that. His turn to shuffle, and the deal's about to come up. Don't wait for it to happen elsewhere. Be here now. At the point in your timing when this project was initiated, there was a very small window in which to begin the process. Once the idea was grasped and acted upon, the next window encompassing moved into the process was much larger. This step allowed for the contact of various new individuals to be made aware and continuing the enlarging of the window. The addition of other minds grasping the basic idea and focusing their intention of participating has continued opening the window to allow for the continued inclusion of additional participants. The expansiveness of the movement allows the process to come into harmony with the expression of divine order, which is expansive in its very nature. The momentum of the outward movement of this information forms the basis for continuing this harmonious flow and ensures the divine participation that is essential to success. It is important that you realize that the key to success is in the expansive outward movement. It is a combination of grasping the various aspects of this intended change of attitude and focusing it through the needed number of points of individual awareness. The importance of these aspects is the establishment of an outward flow and maintaining this flow. New contacts must be made by as many of the recently contacted individuals as possible to keep this expansive flow in motion. As memories are keyed to think of other appropriate people not yet contacted, then one can continue to make additional contacts. This ensures that those without commitment to carry the letter to Garcia do not impede this essential outward expansion. If these messages were to be sent out to new contacts that are considered to be ones sure to follow through and actually continue the flow, it would perhaps be appropriate to send the first few as an introductory packet. A cover note suggesting that if theirs is a real commitment, then on request more of the messages will be provided. This would allow a spread of the cost for the reproduction and mailing, so it would not be burdensome to a few. Each committed one would also, in all probability, make only a few appropriate contacts. This also allows for anonymity and protection. It is assumed that only those known and deemed appropriate would be contacted, so that discussions would be carried on in the groups of 3s, 7s, and 12s. This is again to remind you of the numerical power available within divine mathematical order. It's entirely appropriate that attempts to formulate a possible statement of purpose should be made at small group levels. The more of these attempts that are made, the sooner the perfect one will stand forth. When that happens, that group will be totally aware that completion has been accomplished for that phase. What to do next will also be drawn into that group awareness, attracted by the power of the fusion of all the input from the totality of the groups. Here again you are reminded that thought thinks within and upon itself when it is in divine harmony. How many participants are necessary for this parenting phase depends on 3 factors: who, how quickly the phase is initiated, and the productive discussions actually taking place. The ball's in your court. Responses in terms beyond intellectualizing the shift in perception are the keys. We can participate further when you return the ball to our court. In the meantime, we are limited in this project to the flow of information and encouragement. The overview from our perspective is somewhat encouraging. The plans of the interesting participants of opposite purpose continue right on schedule. It's not important that the view from our focus is one of action and not reaction. It is the ability of our group to have a balanced dual perspective that spreads with the awareness of our project. This will sustain the momentum. There must be an awareness of the awesome inevitability of the probable success of their plan, and a balancing awareness that is ours, the only shift available that offers the power to bring release from the intended horrendous future. If followed with dedication and resolve through application of the universal laws of attraction, focused intention to create a new paradigm of experience, and allowance to the lack of resistance, return to balance and harmony must be the end result. Only through this format can the help so ardently sought by suffering humanity be provided. All of the above discussion of bringing others into the awareness of the possibility of creating a new paradigm of experience for this planetary focus, when simply stated, is that the return to personal responsibility is the only avenue leading to success. As individuals assume responsibility, group responsibility through cooperation is the inevitable result. Those unable to move beyond the desire for personal material gain and the need to control the proceedings and outcome will soon drop by the wayside. If discernment is used in choosing appropriate contacts, those may be considered but not contacted. If at first appropriate names do not come into your awareness as you continue to desire to participate, names and coincidental contacts will happen. The law of attraction works. Just hold a desire in your consciousness, especially at times that least attention to other activities. As you retire, when you awaken at the end of meditation, or intentional prayer times are appropriate. The more often it comes into your mind and you feel strongly about desiring to be part of this positive exercise and participation with the Creator within his modus operandi, the greater the contribution you will make. Commitment and resolve are the buoyant qualities that hold this desire on the surface of your consciousness so that opportunities for you to participate are attracted to you. Through this process, you will indeed be a blessing and focused beam of light in this darkened world. A spotlight spreads into a larger and larger circle at the end of the beam. A greater understanding through your choice to become a part of this project will allow you to spread this light of understanding in the midst of a darkening world. Your inner confidence and the peace of knowing that something powerfully new is already being created as the present reality is changing is a powerful, positive pole. This attitude will attract you to those desiring change and ready to transcend the victim state. You will be the pebble within your own pond of experience. Your service will continue to expand to other levels of experience. Don't plan on a dull and boring life from this point on. Your participation on this project will bring with it personal rewards. Recognize sainthood is not one of them. Changes in consciousness will happen as you participate and as your body is able to accommodate them. Those of you who continue to dishonor the living temple of your spirit will miss on some of these rewards. Caffeine, carbonation, a diet of prepared, overcooked foods require you to reconsider your priorities. Many of you are without a mate that results in choosing to eat out. Consider your choices and opt for food cooked for shorter periods and include raw foods. If you eat at home, many supermarkets now carry some organic foods. Overeating causes the body to use its energy digesting rather than using it for more productive modes. Smaller amounts of nourishing foods allow the body to use its available energy in other activities and to possibly require shorter sleep periods. Much is being asked of you, but knowing you incarnated here in this lifetime to participate in this project allows you to stop wondering, why me, why here, and why now? This in itself will bring you to change your priorities. As participation in it becomes your priority, those activities that are not important to it will shift out of your life. It is the way it works. Will this take over your life? We would hope not. It is where the action is, and so your life will take it over. A different and energizing perspective. The taking on a personal responsibility and moving within the flow of creation for the purpose of expanding creation. Bring rewards of a personal nature as well as to the larger picture. It's a most enjoyable experience. As you participate, you will remember how it feels to be in balance and harmony, and this will assist you in knowing and making your necessary contributions to the wholeness of the project. To bless is to be blessed, indeed. It is interesting from our perspective to see that you are busily building a reservoir of energy that is standing in stagnation. There is a growing number of people aware of the Paradigm Project, but few, if any, have sat down to play at composing what might be called their personal idea of a statement of purpose. It is as though you must wait until you meet in some type of formal meeting to accomplish anything. Where is personal responsibility in this response? It would seem to me that bringing your personally defined idea along with you would bring a different level of intent to a meeting to define a purpose. It was hoped that this would be a natural outcome of the suggestions that you begin this process for your own salvation. Do not assume that your ground crew status will be enough. You are in the third dimensional experience and are governed by the same as other inhabitants of planet Earth. If personal responsibility is the keynote, then operate within it, especially with regard to the project if you hope to achieve its purpose. We are finding it difficult from the perspective of our experience to comprehend just how difficult it is for you to experience within the vibrational level of Earth. The combination of planned lowering techniques being applied to all aspects of earthly existence is inevitably lowering the vibration in measurable calibrations. It is the concerted effects of the multiple techniques that are accomplishing this. The critical mass of humans now within the control of these combined techniques will soon be reached. It is important for you to have the understanding that the critical mass point needed for evil intent is different than it is for intent upliftment. This cannot be calculated in simple percentages, for the degree of involvement of each soul and its extensions must be considered in this calculation. As the vibratory rate descends, the critical mass point ascends, while the opposite is true from our point of view. Lowering the vibratory rate is much more difficult than raising it. A simple realization can cause a jump in the vibratory rate. So why don't we just trigger a big planetary realization and fix the whole thing? As the vibratory rate lowers, the brain synapses become more and more impaired. Also, the use of sugar substitutes, such as equal, is slowly destroying the ability of the brain to function as they destroy the nerve endings. These can and do cross the blood-brain barrier. Further, low-fat, high-sugar-bearing carbohydrate diets are starving the brain cells. All of this is part of the plan. Remember, they understand functions of the physical body well enough to be able to develop techniques to weaken the connection of the being to a vibratory source, in hopes that it can be broken at their moment of choosing. May we stress that you think carefully about this information and that you read your labels and take personal responsibility in the care of your bodily functions necessary to participate in this project. Beyond that which is mentioned in this message and the previous one, the remaining critical factor is the pH level of your body and your blood. If you are serious about wanting to return to the higher dimensional experience, then you are required to master the third dimension, and the completion of this project is recommended as your ticket. Personal responsibility is being responsible for your personal expression of this life experience, starting with your body temple. To do that now, you need to think independently of what is being touted in your media and by the medical community. Even most alternative professionals are versed in less than holistic understanding and offer only partial assistance with their expensive products. Massage is a pleasant interlude, but is not a replacement for the personal responsibility of regular, gentle exercise. Are we lecturing you? What is offered is by way of guidance. If you take it in any other way, then you are reacting to the distorted ego function. Depends on whether you can act rather than intellectualize. The ego has been so distorted so that it loves to pontificate and to excuse, so that personal responsibility can be avoided. So much easier to talk than to do when changing established patterns is involved. It can be overcome by ignoring it and placing the focus beyond the chaos of change and instead on visualizing the end result. Pictures bypass the intellectualizing process and are the true language of the brain. In order to come up with a statement of purpose, the parenting groups must spend personal time visualizing or dreaming what each can conceive through imagination, going within the mind of God, and then attempting to put it in the concise wording. The process can begin with words, then mental movies, then words again. This would bring into practice purposeful meditation, a wonderful tool of higher dimensions. I believe it has been referred to as becoming that which you desire. Those known as shamans and oracles use this technique and walk in two worlds. There are nuances of the universal laws that support the intended purpose of experiencing your way back to the source of all. It's an adventure offering challenge and joy far beyond third-dimensional physical challenges. These leave the empty feelings that one's feel can only be filled with more challenging experiences that bring the same frustrating results of emptiness. The paths of learning are blocked, and mankind on earth is left chasing its non-existent tail and being led in a downward spiral. Continuing in our focus of accepting personal responsibility, it's important to consider another aspect. The ideal of personal responsibility is perceived as being heavy on the responsibility aspect. It would serve humanity better if the accent were on the personal aspect. Again, personal has been distorted to assume the meaning of selfishness, which is translated from the deliberate focus of denying that one can create independence and must take what is needed from someone else. The bankers on your planet illustrate this law of the proposed negative system and carry out this concept to the extreme. This group is not only visualizing their planned result, but is living it now. This increases the available energy required for their plan to move forward. Your Bible has a statement within it to read something like, "The rain falls on the just and the unjust." How do you feel about that? The rain refers to the universal laws working within the focus of either polarity. You are programmed to think that negative pole is always bad. Within the context of the whole, this is not true. There is no electricity, energy moving without both poles. It is distorted use beyond the norms of balance that are at issue in this instance. Personal has the true meaning of the harmonious expression of the fragments of creator energy expression radiantly by continuing the flow of expansive energy into whatever dimension it is within. The word was devised within the focus of reference to the fragment as the family of God, per-son, son, all, personal. Again, the masculine reference because it is within the perception of expansiveness being a masculine aspect. In other words, personal responsibility exemplifies the willingness to be a flow of expansive energy within the realm of your pattern of experience. With the cycle of energy surrounding you moving in an opposite directional flow, you must swim upstreams. so to speak, to accomplish what you intend. Hopefully these messages will provide a convenient rock on which you can stand above the flow in order to get your equilibrium, gain strength to resolve, and then start to gather the rocks necessary to build a dam to divert the flow in a new direction. Yours is a holy project reflecting the holistic nature of how it all works. Within your sequential focus, it must come together piece by piece, but it may not in true reality work that way. This is why it is so important that you trust the process, especially when you think things are not working as they should be. Just do your part, and all will come into place. Trust. Let us continue with these messages for a few more sessions. These pertain to the parenting phase of the Project New Paradigm. The ball then is in your court for action. Either you pick up the ball and move into actually doing the conception of the babe or not. Certainly, we have been making every effort to encourage your participation. If it's necessary for the pedal to be dropped at the next level, you're going to have an interesting ride on the spaceship Earth. This is a further wake-up call. The snooze bar is reaching the end of the program. If you're reading this information or hearing it, you are part of the ground crew and need only to realize it is time to drop your disguise and begin your mission. The flight crew cannot land until the field is ready and the invitation is issued. As suggested before, begin formulating and dreaming scenarios within your own personal awareness. This triggers the resonance of the law of attraction. In the beginning there was thought, and the thought became flesh. It's a matter of bringing the information shared previously into cohesive understanding that allows you to operate within the appropriate process. Since the paradigm can only be brought forth with a holographic format that resonates in the harmony with the wholeness of creation, it would seem logical that you understand the basic parameters required to ensure success. Since it involves feeding this information to you in bits that can be pondered and assimilated, it ends up spread over many pages. You are then left to combine the bits into composite that formulates a sensible basis for your moving into the creative process with confidence. It will be necessary for you to assume the study mode and reread and re-listen to these lessons in order to bring forth your own understanding and to formulate your personal foundations. There are nuances of the laws that will blossom into your awareness through the study assimilation process. It would be convenient for you if we would simply provide you with an outline, but that would not allow the flowering process to be reached as an end result. It's nice to receive a bouquet and simply enjoy the beauty and the fragrance, but the growth process would be skipped. It is necessary that you grow your understanding. The Handbook for the New Paradigm is a precious treasure given to you so that you may step into your radiant stance of service and fulfill your chosen destiny in the history of planet Earth. Through this suggested process, the burden of responsibility will transcend into pure joy of bringing enlightenment to the world of darkness. Within the holographic process is the element of maintaining the focus to enable manifestation to complete its intended cycle. The focus of thought is maintained for long periods of time, again staying within the reckoning mode, by setting the vibratory oscillations within a range that emanates sound. This is duplicated in a crude form by your music. In purity, it can be grasped as being of crystalline bell-like quality. Tibetan bells give you an inkling of the reverberations that continue for a long period of time, beyond what the human ear can hear. Within a holographic context, a continuous vibration is set forth in an over-unity mode carrying forth the expansive paradigm. Each holographic creation is unique, reminiscent of your snowflakes. There is present within each galaxy a continuous melody of bell-like sounds which is perceived in part by some and referred to as the music of the spheres, which is the perfect description. Earth at the moment is quite out of tune. Contemplate the resonance of a crystalline music of the spheres and then think of punk rock. That might be thought as the resonant sound of the planned new galaxy. Would you like to live there all the time? Perfect resonance is attained through balance. This is the reason that rock music is so destructive to the balance of the young people. It's designed to be unbalanced and discordant in its basic construction. It reflects outward the inner imbalance of its composers, and it enhances chaotic tendencies within the psyche of those spending long and frequent time listening to it. The bridge for this phase from romantic, sexually stimulating music was the Beatles. Their early music contained melodies with a lesser amount of distortion, as it is demonstrated by the orchestral versions. It did, however, open up the door for the more destructive distortions that inevitably followed. Again, all part of the plan to slow and hold down the human vibration. In order for you to conceptualize a higher dimensional experience, it is necessary that you have some understanding of the experience of it from the creational perspective. Holographic interaction is basic to this understanding. Current methodology to produce the phenomenon involves a beam of light focused through a transparency that produces a floating dimensional replica. In an existing holograph, you conceive a thought of a desire to be reproduced in a holographic mode. This thought thinking, you, focuses by enlarging this thought with details that further define the holographic desire and increases the energy of the beam-like thought with the emotions of what the experience of enjoying this new holograph will be like before empowering it to come into form. You call the holographic concept 3D or third-dimensional. How then is the fourth dimension different? 3D encompasses the concept of height, width, and depth, but involves no motion within the holograph of its own volition. 3D movies involve dimensional glasses. Virtual reality is also a manipulation. The next step in the fourth dimensional experience superimposes the living or vibratory dimension of action within the purview of the holograph itself. A true holograph is projected through thought, not by mechanism. Since thought has the power to act upon itself with further thought, it is self-aware. A higher degree of self-awareness implies a higher vibratory rate or dimension of experience. The seeds of one dimension are planted within the lesser one. This brings you to the understanding that you are already aware of being self-aware. However, this seed must be nurtured and cultivated in order to flower into transcending to a point of outgrowing its present placement through increasing its vibratory rate until it lifts itself into a dimensional shift, allowing for greater opportunity to grow even more self-aware. What you are attempting to do is to cause this process to manifest on a planetary scale because Earth's vibratory environment is so distorted that individuals can no longer accomplish it. Just as Moses had to cross the Red Sea at the exact moment of a planetary shift, this is time at the exact moment of a galactic shift. How will you know? That's our job. As usual, you are being reminded that unless you create a plug and pull it, some other backup plan will be employed that will bypass the opportunity for humanity to clean up their own act and will use it as a stepping stone for advancement. We continue to stress the power that you hold in the palm of your hands. It's such a gift to be in the position of assisting this planet and its inhabitants into a shift of such major proportion, and it carries with it an opportunity for literally jumping up the vibratory scale. We can only bring the opportunity to your attention and act in its advisory capacity. You must be the ones to do it. It is not the first time you have participated in similar roles. This is the mission you have literally trained yourself to be part of. So don't drop the ball now. There's nothing more important in your current realm of experience. Progress is being made within the hearts and minds of those who are reading these messages. By progress, we mean there is a shift within the consciousness that is reflected within the holographic activity that is you. In other words, the thoughts that each of you is thinking and acting within itself. Your psychologist and your psychiatrist would say there's a shift in the data stored within your subconscious. The prayer given previously, I am a human becoming, help me to become, is powerful enough that simply reading it and considering it with a positive attitude begins the shift. The victim attitude is deeply ingrained within humanity as a whole. It shuts down the light of each child as soon as it is absorbed from the parental attitude. With the realization that victimhood is a falsehood and the idea being released, the holographic pattern immediately begins to brighten. Use it as a mantra, especially when encountering situations that have in the past triggered what has been referred to as giving away your power. These can be encounters with other people or other life situations resulting from inappropriate decisions. The prayer wording allows a shift in attitude that reflects an intention to taking back that power. As it is practiced on a small scale within each individual life, then it becomes a tiny grain of sand in the mass consciousness that grows as others receive and begin to use this simple thought in their daily lives. It might be appropriate to define mantra. It's a short series of sounds or words that bring upon balance within what you call the subconscious awareness. Often the sounds are from ancient languages that are not consciously understood, but resonate at the DNA, RNA level of the body, bringing about change in an outward flowing manner. The mantra as currently used is often an intuitive decision on the part of one person, assigning it to another. Frequently, the appropriate combination is not given, and years of repetition brings little, if any, change. Some choose on their own with the same result. The use of the simple prayer, I am a human becoming, helped me to become guarantees results. The most benefit is gained not by setting aside a period and using continuous repetition, but by single statements made in connection with conscious recognition of thoughts, encounters, or situations that are bringing forth your victim response. Remembering and thinking it several times during the day is also very helpful. You each have victim responses, and there are no exceptions. You simply deny you do in order to deny that you give away your power to an ego that does not. Denial is the shield of the empowered ego that fosters victimhood as a result. This prayer will end the deification of the ego. Ego is a function, not a false, thou shalt have no gods before me. The number one false god is the falsely enthroned ego that you have been programmed to struggle against. A number of commonly used quotes are appropriate. That which you resist, persist. That which you fear shall come upon you, and so forth. You have been programmed to turn everywhere but inward in self-contemplation. That results in self-empowerment that in turn flows outward into expansive expression. Self-contemplation is not sitting and staring at your navel wondering, who, what, and where am I? It is practicing the use of the universal laws and contemplating the result of the applications in experience for the purpose of self-enlightenment. Each experience is a pebble in the pond of your life. Your not-so-friendly not-so have added other layers of programming very effectively. You must not look inward or empower the self because that is selfish. You are then guilty if you consider empowering the self because it is then implied that you will use the power to overcome others. This results in distortion through misinterpretation early in childhood as each attempts to establish their innate tendencies to follow what gives them joy into greater expression. The distortion spread into countless intermingling and interacting complicated behavior patterns that pass from one generation to the other. The simple use of the prayer or mantra frequently within family and group situations by the participating members would bring dramatic changes. The wide use of it wisely would have phenomenal results. The point of this segment of information is not a sermon, but instead to illustrate how a statement of simplicity and appeal can bring forth change in a way that resolves and literally dissolves the intermingled and interrelated distorted patterns of experience. If you doubt this, use a small prayer and observe what happens. The more you use it appropriately, wisely, the greater demonstration you will observe. Following the first remembering uses of it, you will find yourself using it silently in situations as simple as being irritated because the waitress is slow. It changes your experience, which in turn changes hers. There will be big irritations that will slip by, and later when remembered, these and the most appropriate times to say is with meaning, in emotion. It works. It would seem that this series of messages could perhaps have been condensed down into a few simple statements that would be as effective as a small prayer. Perhaps, but would you have heard them? And observing human tendencies, especially ones with media overwhelm and information clutter, it's a matter of chipping away at an established pattern of the read and toss syndrome. Most who have awakened to the reality of the situation surrounding you are avid readers and listeners with the syndrome deeply patterned. The media overwhelm consists of constant repetition plainly presented and supported by subliminal keywords and phrases. This places a shield of resistance at the subconscious level that then accepts subliminal messages like arrows penetrating a target. These messages have had to slowly penetrate this shield using repetition and realizations of truth as our arrows to penetrate the shield and to cause the places in the shield to open so that the messages could be absorbed in rereading of the same version but understood in a new light. Greater clarity of particularly two statements should augment this opening process. This doesn't indicate that your shield attempting to protect you from the media barrage is weakened. Instead, it's strengthened. The greater realization of the bigger picture of both aspects of your surrounding situation allows for conscious sifting of all the information you're inputting. The realizations of truth and your sincere commitment to the project have rearranged the content of the subconscious in a way similar to programs used to computer files can be rearranged, allowing the disk space to be used in a most efficient configuration. This will be reflected in your life experience. There may be some confusion, especially during your sleep patterns, as this reconfiguration of your subconscious actually happens. For the most self-aware, it will be more pronounced and for a time even troublesome. This process will allow you to absorb important contents of the messages into a format at both levels of consciousness. It's like entering two interacting programs on a computer, something like Word overlaying Windows, both contributing to a greater practical application available to the user. How well it works depends on how well the user learns and applies its available unique applications. This is an apt analogy for careful consideration by serious users intending to take advantage of the opportunity to shortcut older methods of grubbing it out. There are many levels involved in the process of bringing forth the accelerated changes in the consciousness of Earth inhabitants' planetary awareness. The focus of the mass consciousness at the individual level is outward in contemplation of the deliberate teaching that the Creator is personality somewhere beyond the sky and the heavens, making arbitrary judgments about whether the victim prayers deserved answering, is a picture of the structure inherent with the aberrant plans being carried out all around you. It's constrictive in its focus, the opposite of expansion creation that maintains itself through an over-unity mode, meaning the flow brings forth an exponential increase in the energy beyond what is focused into manifestation. This results through the inverse movement of the self-contemplative focus, which is within the intentional manifestation or the action of the second universal law. It can then be likened to there being two sides of a coin. Through the intention of creation manifestation, there is the result of the manifestation, and then the contemplation or experiencing of this process, which is the self contemplating as it experiences. That involves the five senses, ego observation, and the contemplative thought process. Ideally, all this moves through the individual life experience in a flow. This is not to say that each individual would always create positive experiences. However, if the process was understood at the subconscious level, then the effects of an inappropriately caused experience would be contemplated. Through the necessary adjustments of attitude and intention, a lesson would be learned, and the overall experience pattern continued with little trauma, greater wisdom gained, and further upliftment of the energy vibration. Through consideration of the ideal, it is easy to conclude that the planned reversal of this flow to create an opposite inclusive flow would end in something like your scientist theory of the black hole, absorbing all the available energies into a compacted mass. Why then have all the planners not figured out the greater picture of the inevitable end of their endeavor? The enthroned ego, with the addiction to power and control, is seldom able to perceive logically. You perceive this type of distortion as insanity because of an individual's inability to follow the logical norm of the societal group. Sometimes it is because the creative thought process is far beyond the societal norm, and sometimes it is ruled by distorted ability to perceive. This is both can learn behavior through controlled indoctrination, interchange between the present generations and those following. The particular group holding our interest promotes longevity and positively believes in reincarnation. Each of the hierarchy is programmed at birth through magical methods to believe that they are reincarnation through a long line of predecessors all committed to this project. Each generation is then perceived as being more empowered than the last. In this way, their project is continued on what you experience on the eons of time towards this important pivotal point. This project, which deviates so far from the accepted norm, has come into form through the use of the first two laws of the universe of attraction and focused intent. However, it's not possible for them to move out of the flow of expansive energy in a relaxed mode. The law of allowance is ignored. The only way for balance to be maintained is through the rigid control of all aspects by planning and executing every detail to dovetail within their overall plan. Deviations are detected as quickly as possible, and all haste is taken to remedy the situation by any means possible in the belief that the end justifies the means. This overview of the pattern of their plan does not indicate that it is Earth and its inhabitants are firmly within the grip of its influences, and the situation must be intentionally resolved. It is beyond the point that containment would be appropriate while the inhabitants figure the rollout. The control being exerted outweighs the possibility of this taking place without focused assistance. The focused assistance is manifesting into the heart of their game in the form of the Project New Paradigm with its multifaceted application of all four laws. You must contemplate the inside-out process concurrent with the outside-in process through the nuances of previously explained facets of creative flow to arrive at a picture of the game board. You will then be able to choose intelligently to join the play or not. The play will be interesting to follow. One focus of the play will be intense and controlled, giving forth an aura of determined restraint, planning and examining every move. The other relaxed, allowing each play to be drawn to the wisdom of thought, thinking, resulting in calm game moves, each flowing into the next into an expansive mode. The adversary considers that each play represents a shift necessary before another play can be conceptualized and focused in a manifestation within the application supplied by the use of two universal laws as self-governing factor. The balances perceived by them establish control. Since their focus is restricted to using only two laws, using the third in an opposite mode makes the fourth impossible to attain. In other words, within our analogy, they're playing with only half a deck. There are slang references to insanity as playing with only half a deck. That's quite appropriate. There have been frequent uses of analogies within these messages, each to illustrate the understanding of two areas, the reintroduction of the universal laws, and an overview of the game strategies in simple terms. We have attempted to add dimension to those understandings within succeeding messages. As you assemble these bits of information into blocks of understanding, you enhance your ability to contribute to the project. Commitment and resolve garner confidence in your day-to-day experience as you attract opportunities to participate. This releases the need to react towards the program individuals caught up in the negative focus and brings allowance into your experience. You know how the game is being played and can now perceive that you have the choice to participate intelligently, resulting in a new sense of balance through purpose. Through returning to familiar expansive expression, your sense of well-being becomes magnetic and radiant. You are beginning the transcendent process. The creative process takes advantage of every opportunity to continue its expansive mode. Your heart welcomes this wondrous opportunity and adds the dimension of emotion to the thinking level, bringing forth outward dimensional expansion. This is how it works. There was a time that mankind experiencing on this planet brought all into balance. It was an experience that set what you might term the ideal in the consciousness at the planetary level. This then established the ability to recognize imbalance and allow for the desire to return to that ideal. This realization of what is and is not balanced experience comes from deep within the awareness. The singularity of focus is the controlling factor allowing the planet to remain within the orbital pattern of the solar system. What is perceived as gravity as it relates to the magnetism of the planet does not apply to the planets as they orbit within the solar system. This is a higher application of the law of attraction, or like being attract alike. When there are similar criteria involved in the creative focus that brings the system into manifestation, that similarity is the basis for remaining within the field of focus. Inasmuch as there is natural over-unity flows of energy accumulated, the system continues to expand and additional planets are formed. The process involved is not the point, only that you grasp the understanding that your scientists cannot understand what is at the basis of all manifested creation without understanding the basic laws of the universe and the principles of thought thinking and acting upon itself independent of control. Once this basis is accepted, then the door to understanding is open. It was never meant for man to gaze and wonder at what surrounds him, but that he should understand. The human brain is but a radio receiver that is capable of tuning into the flow of knowledge ever present in the creative flow. The magnetic field surrounding each of you is like an antenna, but your acquired belief systems cause you to unplug from the universal station and instead plug only into the five sensual environment. The spiritual aspect of the human, the God aspect of self-awareness, is unknown to you through the stressed importance of material manifestation and the distorted influence of your religions. The adventure you search in vain to find is found in exploring the journey of the spirit that you are in to manifest the experience and in finding its every expansive return trip. This explains why each goal attained is never enough, and more must be attempted or lapse into discouragement and plan instead for a trip to the city of golden streets to take up playing the harp on the local cloud. Humanity, as it knows itself on planet Earth at this moment, is experiencing the degree of utter frustration that is incredible indeed. This can be compared to a balloon filling at an exponential rate toward the explosive point. The master planners of control are watching for this bursting point and planning the expansion with what they believe to be great care. However, just as the balloons from the same package burst at different air pressure levels, neither can they be sure what the exact bursting point may be. It's a matter of how this released energy is directed that is the important point. Will it be as they choose, or can it be self-directed by the mass consciousness of the awareness inside that bubble? Could the energy within the bubble be redirected from frustration to creation and deflate the balloon? They have no contingency plan to deal with these possibilities. It only requires one small hole in the dike to destroy the dam. Several or even many small holes ensure and speed the process. Why not one big explosion? Allowing weak points to expand is within the expansive flow of creation, while deliberate destruction is not. Considering possibilities within your own life experience is self-contemplation, again with the expansive flow of experience. Does the focus of applying the law of attraction and deliberate manifestation of this opportunity for the weakness in their plans to expand include the destruction of the ones who would enslave it or end your earthly experience by their choice? It is suggested to consciously withdraw participation by focusing instead on an entirely different creation project that will simply transcend the planned disaster. This would leave the perpetrators holding the bag and experiencing the other side of the coin, as fits into the experience of the law of attraction, to their own use of it. This would be a wonderful demonstration of the universal laws in concept and application. Conceptualization of the simple changes in how a situation is perceived and, using a change of focus of intention, applying the universal laws that have brought forth the wholeness of manifested reality, is a big stretch of your understanding of how things really are. When you reread this material or re-listen to it, ask for the spiritual aspect, the source of your manifestation into life experience to give you discernment. Ask to know if this material contains truth, and what are the applications of these truths that will serve you, your fellow inhabitants, and the planet. It is your right to know if this is guidance or trash. Ask, and it shall be given unto you. This statement was not given to bring you material things directly, but that you might receive knowledge or information to be experienced into wisdom. It's appropriate to continue to paraphrase. Unto those much will be given, and from them much will be expected. When understanding is given, you are expected to apply the laws and to live within them an ever-expanding application and further understanding. Ignorance is no excuse before the law. The laws work whether you understand them or not. Intelligent, intentional application is the best bet for an adventure that will keep you delightfully occupied, depending on your ability to overcome your own experiences and see them in context. Attitude does determine your altitude. There are many puzzle pieces within these lessons that will be assembled by each serious endeavor to do so. Amazingly, these complete puzzles will each be a unique piece that will fit into the puzzle at the next level. You exist within a dimensional whole. Even the pieces are dimensional rather than flat. A necessary shift in how you conceptualize is available as a stepping stone for greater understanding. When you add dimension and life, which is thought thinking, to the game board, it lights up. Through your imagination, you can begin to perceive movement within flow. Nothing is lifeless or stagnant. Every quark, atom, and molecule is pulsing with thought and movement. Nothing is truly flat or solid. You cannot walk through walls in your manifested body at the density of 68 megahertz or less. This should not be mystery. When your brain vibration is 90 megahertz or less, you are unable to tune your radio-like brain to the universal flow and receive the keys of the mysteries of the galactic intentional focus. The possibilities of adventures leading to these experiences are encompassed within these lessons. Not all is directly presented, for much is there to be contemplated and greater understandings brought forth through the personal unique process. Within the Creator's flow, all uniqueness is divergent and cohesive. Two sides of the coin, or it should be that a visualization is something that is dimensional rather than flat, incorporating the polarities through expression and experience for the purpose of returning to balance and adventuring forth again. The practice of discernment is an inclusive nuance of self-contemplation of experience for the purpose of gaining wisdom and moving on into further expansion. A wise practice to apply frequently. When the ending of the millennium does occur, it does not do this on the date of your calendar. The cycles are not required to follow your calendar of the seasons. The basis of the cycles is not from the Earth perspective, but from what you call the zodiac, as Earth passes from one influence of the 12 aspects of experience to the next. The starting place of each planet's trip through these influences does not follow the conclusions drawn by astrologers, but is determined by the mathematical equation of the solar system as it synchronizes with the master equation of the galaxy. It may then be assumed that the true ending of the millennium cycle is unknown, other than in a general sense, and it is close to your calculated time, give or take a few months. The cycles shift at higher levels as the heavenly bodies, observable in the night sky, which is nearly impossible because of artificial lighting, all moving in cycles reaching points for repetition to begin. This indicates ending and beginning within the conceptualization of finite thinking that is confined to the lower realms of dimensional experience. Each cycle may be thought as a portion of a breathing process allowing for a rest period or a time span at the 0 point of balance before the shift. The 0, rest point, is the point at which each manifested creation partakes of an energy feeding process or gathering of new energy before it moves into the new cycle. It is this available energy that the devious ones plan to utilize, combining it with the separated soul energy they plan to gather. They perceive this will supply an additional over-unity boost to bring about their planned shift from positive to negative. They also perceive that the control they are exerting will be accepted as the balance necessary for the energy transfer to occur at the resting point of the cycle shift. Magicians assume that their tricks are accepted as real by observers caught up in the process. Unfortunately for them, they are the ones caught up in their own deception. The Creator and the creation do not observe darkness of deception, for all thoughts and plans are known. Glaring reasons that humanity, as it now experiences, cannot in this moment exist in the higher dimensions are that thoughts and emotions are available to be read by all. Deception is impossible because intentions are fully known. This brings personal responsibility as the basis for higher dimensional experience into the light of logical understanding. Individuals sharing the same dimensional experience screen out inharmonious thought to allow balanced group experience. Focused thoughts are known, and then what you call mental telepathy eliminates the need to slow the vibratory rate to vocalize thoughts. Since all at this level are consciously aware that their shared intention is participating in the return trip to the source of their own creation, the transition is not fraught with difficulty. Are there deviations? Of course, but normally these are worked through in a supportive environment. It is rare that an individual must be returned to a lower dimension. As you begin to understand a larger picture of this point in the history of your planet and the segment of humanity that now resides on it, you can pinpoint your own experience within the scenario. If indeed you are a volunteer who has placed itself in lower dimensional experience in order to assist individuals trapped there, then it hardly seems fair that you must be bound by the confines of that dimension. Unfortunately, that's how it works. However, it was understood when you volunteered to do this, there would be a point that you would be fully reminded of who and what you are, and of the agreement you made. In other words, you were promised a wake-up call. This is your wake-up call. Now that this information has begun to be absorbed into your consciousness and the subconscious levels of your awareness are rearranging to allow an attitude adjustment, a new focus is developing. The world you observe is changing before your eyes. There are 3 levels of awareness developing: the facade as presented to you, the activities of the magicians, and the refocusing of the mass consciousness of the planet's inhabitants. The first 2 layers of simultaneous awareness were present within your psyche, but were blurry and distorted. Examining them in some detail has allowed clarity and understanding. Adding the third brings forth the realization that you are indeed standing on the first rock of the project's planned diversion. Now it is decision time. Do you participate and continue in sharing a clear picture of the movie in progress all around you? This is a scenario rather than a scene. It is a motion all around you with all 3 activities interacting on the same stage, all within depth, width, and height. It goes without saying that the project is the least focused of the activities as yet. That is your job. The basic job description is present within these messages. The framework is there. It is your personal responsibility to flesh out the job. The free will aspect is the ball in your court. Whether you pick it up or walk away is your choice. Our part to play within this drama, tragedy, or love story, your choice, is to act as the producer of this production. The writing, directing, and acting are your contributions. The producer provides the financing and the decisions as to whether the proposed script is something the backers, the investors, will approve. If script writers do not bring a proposed scenario to the producers may decide a certain thing would be saleable and solicit writers to contribute outlines. Since there have been no new paradigm novels, the theater owner has instructed this producer to solicit new paradigm outlines, beginning with a statement of purpose setting the theme. This is your invitation to participate. Since this is a Cecil B. DeMille type production, collaboration is recommended. The analogies used are not meant to make light of the situation, but to instill understanding at subconscious levels of your awareness. Pictures are easily assimilated in clarity. Words are filtered through a myriad of individual past experiences, attitudes, opinions, and all the programming each of you carries through the deliberate indoctrination you have received. Movies and television have been their tools of deception. However, the pictures that are brought forth by the imagination are far more powerful. For example, in your not-too-distant past, there was storytelling of myths and legend that invoked imagination. The current cartoons for children and movies have been provided to repress the inner imagination and stifle the creative instinct. Pictures program the subconscious. Pictures focused with the intent of reprogramming the subconscious accomplish this quickly. Purposeful intent supported by resolve is focus. The planet and humanity continue to cry out for an end to this scenario, but only humanity can bring the end through the creation of a new plot, a new script, and a new play. Free will allows humanity the choice to continue the present movie or simply have the stage revolve to the next production. However, there must be a new set or a scene on that stage so that audience participation can be invited to create this play of plays for the planet as a whole. What more can be done is now out of our hands. The wake-up calling is up to each of you as this message comes into your experience. Who is it that you know in your heart would resonate with the challenge focused through it? Will you dedicate yourself to this critical cause? Will you read, listen, and study the information with the intention of allowing its message to fill the void that resonates within you because of the deceptions of the dark magicians? When you think or speak the small prayer, I'm a human becoming, help me become, ask for guidance through your feelings that you may know. You are calling forth the vibratory connection to your source, the cause of your life experience here and now. Lines of communication open, and seeming miracles begin to happen through coincidence and synchronicities. Most of all, a calm and peaceful attitude becomes prevalent in your experience. Your countenance changes, and you know who you are, why you are here, and what is to be done in each moment. You have a purpose, a mission, and there is hope for this planet after all. In the times that come, those of you who make the choice to become part of the holistic transformation of this planet and its inhabitants will lead the way to the transformation of yourselves. Mankind is inspired by example, not by words, written or spoken. Will you be as famous as Mother Teresa? No, indeed. Your example will be one of living the life of purposeful focus. Each day your intent is to be a human becoming for the purpose of mankind becoming and the planet becoming. This commitment in unison will bring forth an aura of magnetism that will reflect in all aspects of your experience. Will it make you a millionaire? Probably not, because your focus is to participate in the larger creative flow into an experience that will have parameters that are yet unknown. The basic concept on which all higher dimensions are based is realized in the understanding that the pivot point to upliftment into evolving consciousness is the unified focus of returning to the level of Creator. The one-upmanship of accumulating and maintaining material wealth is a moot point. During the period of chaos facilitating the transition, those with intent to assist in the birthing of the new paradigm, rather than the maintenance of values to be transcended, will be assisted in having available what is needed to superintend facets of organization that are necessary. These will not be in the focus of leadership, but of setting the ideal or archetype of cooperation. Once before, a question was asked for your contemplation. You were asked if you could conceptualize a system in which there were no levels of leadership or hierarchy because they were unnecessary. Unity of focus based on personal responsibility to fulfill harmonious, shared goals of becoming through individual experience sets up a cooperative environment. Cooperation replaces competition, and fear is no longer present. The accumulation of wealth is motivated by the desire for protection, which is based in fear of what the future may hold and fed by the empowered ego through competition. He who dies with the most toys wins is an apt illustration of this imbalance. It's easier for a loaded camel to go through the eye of a needle, a cultural reference to a small people gate in a town or house compound, than for a rich man to enter heaven, a state of contentment. This is true not because of the material things that are accumulated, but because of the basic attitudes that motivate him or her. Retirement funds are necessary because these same attitudes and beliefs bring on disease and degeneration of the body, illustrating the basic lack of trust in the Creator's flow that birthed you into this life experience. In a nutshell, the moment you're born, you are taught to begin swimming upstream against the flow of creative expansion. It's now time that you climb out on a rock, take a good look around, and then begin swimming with the expansive flow. It is so much easier and enjoyable. Swimming with the flow allows the focus of becoming to be thought acting within and upon itself. The resulting harmonious experience is that of being wholly supported in that quest. To accomplish this with an environment of humanity swimming in the opposite direction is impossible unless it is accomplished within a cooperating group that is literally out of that flow, pulling oneself out of that flow, up on the rock, carefully perceiving the situation, and making the decision to enter the greater flow of the galaxy that is moving within creative expansiveness brings you to a level out of that struggling mass. Once the initial group begins this action by free will choice, many will join in increasing numbers, and a new flow is formed, joining the galactic flow. As those of the masses, literally wearing themselves out by spending their creative energy within the struggle, observe your life moving smoothly and easily along within that flow, your mission of reversing the flow will be well underway. Your return ticket receives its first punch when you pull yourself out, stand on the rock, and observe the situation from the level of accepting the situation as reality within the third-dimensional realm of planet Earth. The next punch in your ticket is received when you make your choice commitment to bring forth a new paradigm of experience. The next is received when you begin the move within your consciousness and change your life expression through thought and action in harmony with your commitment to bring forth this new paradigm of experience with the inhabitants and the planet. You will know the purpose of your incarnation at the fully conscious level, and the empty wandering will cease. You will then live in fulfillment of your purpose. To choose otherwise is tearing up your ticket. Can you get a new one? Later, maybe. But you will have missed your intended purpose and your intended opportunity. Reread, contemplate, pray, and decide. Free will is your privilege and your responsibility. The question of who is the focusing energy of the messages is a difficult one to answer, tactfully and yet completely. Isness is the focus to be sought by each individual awareness. As each expands within the process of self-identification, so does the ability to allow the flow of isness to move through their experience. Each will attract into their awareness knowledge to live into wisdom. The vibratory rate of the planetary environment and the members of humanity on Earth is low enough that this ability is currently virtually inaccessible. To assist willing members of mankind to access the necessary information to provide a way to transcend this current aberrant state, various volunteer awareness points within higher vibrational frequencies have acted as booster stations to focus this information to those willing to participate on the Earth plane. Knowing the custom of Earth's inhabitants requiring the personified to identify mode, names from the exotic to the ridiculous have been given as sources of this information. The information includes exercises in discernment. Most participants failed the discernment test. Much was filled with profound truth, but much of it was drained of energy by the continual parade of victims wanting their personal problems solved for them. The information became distorted as the focus was withdrawn, and the volunteers winged it, or faked it on their own, for their sincerity was lost in the notoriety and the greed that resulted. In view of this history, it was a mutual agreement between the parties involved in the dictation, translation, transcription process for these messages that the identities of the focus involved would remain undisclosed, and there would be no monetary rewards whatsoever involved. Further, there would be no personal information disseminated for anyone's individual benefit. The totality of the focus involved is for the benefit of the planet and its inhabitants, period. The truth of the messages is to be discerned and used for the benefit of humanity first, and then gleaned by the individual to apply personally, as part of the wholeness to which it is focused, without the necessity of personal names to identify truth. Not understood? Then the messages need to be read again to transcend this need into commitment to the holographic intention of the information they contain. It is hoped that the succinctness of this message is accepted in the tone of importance to which it is intended. The window of opportunity to accomplish the necessary monumental conscious transition is small compared to the obstacles within the human belief systems that must be literally dissolved so that the whole may be transformed. It is sincerely hoped that the truth contained will be a sword that cuts through the armor of deception and lays open the hearts and minds of the necessary quotient for success.